The scream cut through the rain like broken glass. Ethan Vale had built an empire on control. Billion-dollar deals, corporate wars, calculated risks. But nothing prepared him for the 4-year-old girl standing in his driveway at midnight, barefoot and shaking, begging him to save her mother from the man who'd just kicked down their door. In 60 seconds, everything would change. The walls he'd built around his heart, the carefully ordered life he'd constructed after tragedy, the belief that he could survive alone. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Stay until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances. The rain hammered against the windshield like it had a personal grudge against the world. Ethan Vale sat in his Aston Martin in the circular driveway of his mansion, engine still running, unable to make himself go inside. Another Monday. Another board meeting where he had dismantled a competitor's proposal with surgical precision. Another evening of Noah eating dinner alone with the nanny while Ethan worked late. Another night in a house that felt more like a museum than a home. 3 years. 3 years since the accident that took Rebecca. 3 years of pretending that burying himself in Vale dynamics could somehow fill the space she'd left behind. 3 years of watching his 6-year-old son grow quieter, more withdrawn, more like the ghost Ethan saw in his own mirror every morning. He killed the engine. The silence rushed in, broken only by the drum of rain on metal. The house blazed with lights, every window, every room. He'd had the staff turn them all on months ago, after Noah had whispered one night that the dark made him think about Mom. But light didn't chase away loneliness. It just made it easier to see. Ethan grabbed his briefcase and stepped out into the downpour. He was halfway to the front door when he heard it. "Please." The voice was so small he almost missed it, almost kept walking, almost didn't turn around. A little girl stood at the edge of his driveway, where his manicured property met the overgrown lawn of the rental house next door. She couldn't have been more than 4, wearing a soaked purple nightgown that clung to her tiny frame. No shoes, hair plastered to her face, shivering so hard her teeth chattered. Jesus! Ethan dropped his briefcase and closed the distance in 3 strides. He shrugged off his suit jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. It swallowed her whole. "Where are your parents? What are you doing out here?" "The bad man broke our door." Her voice cracked. "Mommy told me to run. She told me to find help." Ice that had nothing to do with the rain shot through Ethan's chest. He looked past her, toward the small house he'd barely glanced at in the 2 years since someone had moved in. A single dim light glowed through a front window, and the front door hung crooked on its hinges. "Is your mom in there now?" The little girl nodded, tears mixing with rainwater on her cheeks. "She's scared. She locked herself in the bathroom, but he's gonna—" Ethan was moving before she finished. "Stay here." "No!" Tiny fingers latched onto his hand with desperate strength. "Don't leave me!" He hesitated for half a second, then scooped her up. She weighed almost nothing. "Hold on tight. Don't let go, understand?" She buried her face against his shoulder. Ethan crossed into the neighboring yard at a run. The grass was overgrown, the paint peeling, the porch sagging. Nothing like the pristine property his landscaping crew maintained. This was a place where people lived paycheck to paycheck, one crisis away from disaster. He'd never even introduced himself to his neighbors. The broken door swung open at his touch. Inside the house was small and cramped, a living room that doubled as a dining room, furniture that looked salvaged from thrift stores, toys scattered across worn carpet. But clean. Someone had tried to make it a home despite having nothing. "Sick of your excuses, Sophie." A male voice, slurred and vicious, came from somewhere deeper in the house. "You think you can just hide from me? You think a locked door means anything?" A crash. Breaking glass. A woman's muffled cry. The little girl in Ethan's arms whimpered. "Where's the bathroom?" Ethan kept his voice low. "Down the hall. Last door." He set her down carefully behind the couch. "Stay here. Don't come out until I tell you. Promise me." "But, Mommy—" "I'll get your mom. I promise. But I need you to stay hidden." He waited until she nodded, then stood. "What's your name?" "Ava." "I'm Ethan. I'm going to fix this, Ava." He moved down the narrow hallway. A child's bedroom on the left. More purple. Stuffed animals lined up on a carefully made bed. glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Another bedroom on the right, barely big enough for a double mattress on the floor and a dresser. The bathroom door at the end was closed. A large man stood in front of it, shoulder pressed against the wood, working the handle violently. "Don't make me break this door too, Sophie. You know I will. You know what happens when you make me—" "That's enough." Ethan's voice cut through the rage like a blade. The man spun around. He was big, bigger than Ethan, probably mid-30s, wearing a stained tank top and jeans. His face was flushed, eyes unfocused, drunk or high or both. "Who the hell are you?" "The neighbor." Ethan kept his stance loose, balanced. He'd never been in a real fight in his life, but he'd paid for enough self-defense training after Rebecca's death to know how to look like he could handle himself. "And you're leaving. This is a private matter, man. Between me and my girl. You need to eat." "She's not your girl if she's locking herself in a bathroom to get away from you." Ethan took one step forward. "And you're on private property. You've committed breaking and entering, criminal trespass, and I'm guessing violating a restraining order. The police are already on their way." A lie. He hadn't called anyone yet, but the man didn't need to know that. "You called the cops?" The man's face darkened. "You think you're some kind of hero? You don't know anything about—" "I know you kicked down a door while a child was in the house. I know you threatened a woman in her own home. And I know you have about 30 seconds to walk out of here before I make sure you leave in handcuffs." "Big talk for some rich prick in a suit." The man took a step toward Ethan. "Maybe I should teach you to mind your own—" The bathroom door opened. "Marcus, stop." The woman who emerged was young, late 20s maybe, with dark hair pulled back and a messy ponytail. She wore faded jeans and a diner uniform shirt with a name tag that read Sophie. Her hands shook, but she kept her chin up, her voice steady. "You need to leave. Right now." Marcus turned on her. "After everything I did for you? After You did nothing for me." Sophie's voice didn't rise, but something in it cut deeper than screaming would have. "You drained my bank account. You stole from my purse. You showed up drunk at my work and got me written up. And now you broke down my door and scared my daughter. So no, Marcus, you don't get to pretend you did anything except make my life harder." "You ungrateful—" "Walk away." Ethan moved between them, or I stopped being polite. For a moment, Marcus looked like he might swing. Ethan could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, the way his fists clenched. But then something in Ethan's expression must have registered. Maybe the cold certainty that Ethan had nothing left to lose. Maybe the recognition that money meant lawyers, security, consequences. Marcus took a step back. "This isn't over." "Yeah," Sophie said quietly. "It is." He shouldered past Ethan hard enough to make a statement, then stalked down the hallway. The broken front door slammed behind him. An engine roared to life outside. Tires squealed against wet pavement. Then silence. Sophie's knees buckled. Ethan caught her before she hit the floor, steadying her with a hand on her elbow. "Easy. You're okay. He's gone." "Ava." She pulled away from him, wild-eyed. "Where's Mommy?" The little girl came sprinting down the hallway and crashed into Sophie's legs. Sophie dropped to her knees and wrapped her daughter in her arms, checking for injuries, smoothing back wet hair, whispering reassurances. Ethan stood back and watched them. Mother and daughter clinging to each other in a house with a broken door, no heat, and furniture held together with duct tape. They had nothing. But the way Sophie held her child, the fierce protective love in every movement. He looked away. His throat felt tight. "Thank you." Sophie's voice made him turn back. She was still kneeling, still holding Ava, but looking up at him with exhausted eyes. "I don't know who you are, but thank you. He wouldn't have stopped if you hadn't—" "Ethan Vale." He cleared his throat. "I live next door." Recognition flickered across her face. "The mansion." "Yeah. I didn't know anyone actually lived there. It's always so quiet. It's just me and my son." The words came out harder than he intended. "Listen, we need to do something about your door. I can call a contractor. I can't afford a contractor." Sophie stood, lifting Ava with her. The little girl wrapped around her mother like a koala, face buried in Sophie's neck. "I'll figure something out. Maybe I can find some plywood at the hardware store tomorrow. Nail it over the—" "That's not secure. It's what I can afford." They stared at each other. Ethan saw the pride in her expression, the stubborn tilt of her chin. She'd probably been fighting alone for so long that accepting help felt like admitting defeat. He recognized that look. He'd seen it in his own mirror. "Let me fix it," he heard himself say. "Tonight." "You?" "I know my way around basic carpentry. I'll reinstall the door, make sure the frame is solid. 1 hour, maybe 2. You and your daughter can wait at my place where it's warm." Sophie shook her head. "I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Ethan pulled out his phone. "I have tools in my garage, wood, everything I need, and leaving that door broken all night isn't safe." "Why?" The question was simple, direct. "Why would you do this for someone you don't know?" Ethan looked at the little girl in her arms, at Ava, who'd been brave enough to run through the rain to ask a stranger for help, at Sophie, who'd locked herself in a bathroom to protect her daughter, at the careful way they'd arranged this small house, making something warm out of nothing. "Because someone should have been there for my wife when she needed help," he said quietly, "and no one was. So maybe if I'm there for someone else's family, it balances things out." Sophie's expression softened. "I'm sorry about your wife." "Me too." He looked away. "So, let me fix your door, please." A long pause, then Sophie nodded slowly. "Okay, thank you." 20 minutes later, Ethan stood in the doorway of his own house and realized he had no idea what to do with house guests. Sophie sat on the edge of his Italian leather couch like she was afraid to wrinkle it. Ava curled up beside her, wrapped in blankets. They looked impossibly small in his massive living room with its vaulted ceilings and abstract art that cost more than most people made in a year. "I'll get started on the door," Ethan said. "Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. There's Mr. Vale?" A voice from the stairs made him turn. Noah stood on the landing in his dinosaur pajamas, rubbing sleep from his eyes. His dark hair stuck up at odd angles. He looked so much like Rebecca in that moment that Ethan's chest constricted. "Hey, buddy, sorry if we woke you." Noah's gaze drifted past Ethan to the couch, to the little girl watching him with wide eyes. "This is our neighbor, Sophie," Ethan said, "and her daughter, Ava. They're having some trouble with their house, so they're going to stay here for a bit while I help them fix something." "What kind of trouble?" Noah descended the stairs slowly, that careful way he moved through the world now, like he was afraid one wrong step might break something. "The bad man broke our door." Ava's voice was small but clear. "He was really loud and scary." Noah's eyes went wide. He looked at Ethan. "Did you fight him?" "Didn't have to. He left on his own." Mostly true. "But their door needs repairs, so I'm going to take care of that tonight." "Can I help?" Ethan blinked. Noah never asked to help with anything. He did his homework when told, ate when food was put in front of him, went to bed without argument. But he never volunteered, never showed interest. "It's pretty late, buddy, and it's still raining. I'm not tired." Noah moved closer to the couch, studying Ava with curious eyes. "How old are you?" 4? Ava held up 4 fingers. "How old are you?" 6. That's 2 more. "I can count to 100. "I can count to 1,000. "Can you count to 1,000,000? "Nobody can count to 1,000,000. It would take too long." Sophie caught Ethan's eye and smiled. It was the first real smile he'd seen from her, tired and strained, but genuine. It changed her whole face. "Ava's cold," Noah announced. "She should have hot chocolate. Dad makes good hot chocolate." "Does he?" Sophie raised an eyebrow at Ethan. "The nanny makes good hot chocolate," Ethan corrected. "I just heat it up." "Same thing." Noah was already heading toward the kitchen. "Come on, Ava. I'll show you where we keep the marshmallows." Ava looked at her mother for permission. Sophie hesitated, then nodded. "Stay where I can see you, baby." The 2 children disappeared into the kitchen. Well, not disappeared. The kitchen was open to the living room, separated by a massive marble island. Ethan could see Noah dragging a step stool to the counter, pulling down mugs from the cabinet, explaining his process to Ava with more words than Ethan had heard him string together in months. "He's sweet," Sophie said quietly. "He's lonely." The admission surprised Ethan. He didn't talk about Noah with anyone except therapists and teachers. After his mom died, he just shut down, stopped talking much, stopped playing with other kids at school. I kept thinking he'd bounce back, but grief doesn't bounce. Sophie pulled the blanket tighter around herself. It just sits there, waiting for you to figure out what to do with it. "Yeah," Ethan watched his son carefully measure cocoa powder into a pot. That sounds about right. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to Noah explain to Ava that you had to heat the milk slowly or it would burn, that 2 marshmallows was the perfect amount, that the secret ingredient was a tiny pinch of cinnamon. I should get started on your door, Ethan said finally. Mr. Vale. Ethan. Ethan. Sophie stood, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. Thank you. For all of this. I know we're strangers, and I know this probably seems like a mess you didn't sign up for. Nobody signs up for the hard parts. Ethan headed toward the garage. They just show up anyway. What? Fixing the door took longer than expected. The frame was cracked in 3 places. The hinges had been ripped clean out of the wood. Marcus had put his shoulder into it with enough force to splinter the door jamb. Ethan had to strip it down completely, rebuild the frame, install new hinges, reset the strike plate. He worked methodically, the way he approached everything, measured cuts, level installations, testing the swing until it hung perfect. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. The porch light, one of those motion sensor ones that flickered on and off, cast weak yellow light across his workspace. His dress shirt was soaked through, his hands blistered from the screwdriver, his back screaming from hunching over for 2 hours. He didn't care. This was the first time in 3 years that Ethan had built something instead of acquiring it. The first time he'd used his hands for something other than signing contracts and typing emails. There was something clean about it, simple. You broke wood, you fixed wood, cause and effect. No board meetings or quarterly projections or stockholders breathing down your neck. Just the work. That's looking good. Ethan turned to find Noah standing in the doorway holding a mug. What are you still doing up? Ava fell asleep on the couch. Noah stepped onto the porch, careful to avoid the tools scattered across the boards. Her mom's asleep too. I brought you hot chocolate. Ethan accepted the mug. It was perfect. Hot but not scalding, sweet but not too sweet. That little hint of cinnamon. Did you make this yourself? Yeah, I remember how Mrs. Peterson does it. Noah sat down on the porch steps, watching Ethan work. The nanny, he clarified, in case Ethan had forgotten the name of the woman who spent more time with Noah than his own father did. Guilt twisted in Ethan's stomach. I should be home more. You're busy. That's not an excuse. Mom used to say that too. Noah picked at a splinter on the step. That being busy wasn't the same as being important. Ethan set down the screwdriver, sat beside his son on the steps. Your mom was right about a lot of things. Do you miss her? Every day. Me too. Noah's voice got small. Sometimes I can't remember what she sounded like. I try really hard, but it's like it's gone. Ethan pulled his son against his side. Noah fit there perfectly, warm and solid and real. I have videos. We can watch them whenever you want. Hear her voice as much as you need. You never watch them. No. Why not? Because it hurts too much. Because seeing her alive and happy makes the fact that she's gone feel impossibly heavy. Because Ethan had built his whole life around not feeling anything, and those videos shattered that carefully constructed numbness into 1,000 pieces. I'm not as brave as you, Ethan said instead. They sat together in the drizzle, drinking hot chocolate, watching the mist rise off the overgrown lawn. I like Ava, Noah said eventually. She's funny. She told me about her imaginary friend who's a dragon that eats vegetables. Sounds terrifying. She said the dragon's name is Mr. Crunch, and he has excellent manners. Noah smiled, actually smiled. She's weird, but good weird. Good weird is the best kind. Are they going to stay? Just for tonight, until I finish this door. Oh. Noah's disappointment was obvious. I thought maybe they could stay longer. The house is big, and it's been really quiet since Mom. He didn't finish, didn't have to. Ethan looked at his son, really looked at him for the first time in months, at the shadows under his eyes, the way he carried himself like something fragile, the careful distance he kept from everything, like he'd learned that caring about things meant losing them. What if we invited them for dinner tomorrow? Ethan heard himself say. If their mom says yes. Noah's face lit up. Really? Really? You can show Ava your dinosaur collection. She might like that. She's more into dragons, but I can work with that. Noah stood, energy returning to his movements. I should go check on her. Make sure she doesn't need another blanket or... Noah. His son turned back. I'm sorry, Ethan said, for being gone so much, for not being there, for letting work become more important than you. You didn't... I did. Your mom would have been furious with me. She always said family first, everything else second, and I forgot that. He stood, facing his son. But I'm remembering now. I'm going to do better. Noah studied him for a long moment, that serious expression that made him look far older than 6. Then he nodded. Okay. Okay. You should finish the door, though, before you start doing better, because that door is really broken. Ethan laughed. Actually laughed, the sound surprising them both. Get back inside before you catch cold. I'll be done soon. He watched Noah disappear into the small house, then turned back to the door. But something had shifted. The work didn't feel like avoidance anymore. It felt like purpose. By the time Ethan finished, it was past 2 in the morning. The door hung perfect. Solid frame, smooth swing, new deadbolt with keys. He tested it 3 times. Locked, unlocked, locked again. Checked the security. Made sure nothing would give. He found Sophie awake when he returned to his house, curled in the corner of his couch, with a book she'd apparently found on his shelf. Ava slept beside her, head on her mother's lap. Noah had crashed in the armchair, mouth open, one arm dangling toward the floor. Is it done? Sophie asked softly. Yeah, new door, new locks, reinforced frame. Nobody's breaking through that without serious equipment. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. Ethan looked at the children sleeping. I'll drive you home, or you can stay here tonight if you feel safer. We should go. Sophie carefully extracted herself from under Ava, lifting her daughter without waking her. You've done more than enough. Ethan scooped up Noah. His son mumbled something incoherent and went boneless in his arms. I'll walk you over. The drizzle had stopped. The sky was clearing, stars visible between thinning clouds. Their footsteps crunched across gravel, then swished through wet grass. Sophie stopped at her newly repaired door, running her fingers over the smooth wood. This must have taken hours. 3, give or take. You didn't have to do this. I know. She turned to face him, Ava heavy in her arms. Why did you really? Ethan looked at his son sleeping against his shoulder. At this woman he'd met 3 hours ago, who'd somehow made him feel more human than he'd felt in years. At the little girl who'd been brave enough to ask for help. Because I spent 3 years building walls, he said quietly. And tonight, your daughter knocked on my door and reminded me what it felt like to actually give a damn about something. Sophie's eyes shimmered. I can't pay you back. Not for a long time. Maybe never. I don't want payment. Then what do you want? Ethan thought about his empty house, his silent dinners, his son who'd smiled more tonight than he had in months. The way Noah had looked at Ava like maybe the world wasn't completely empty of good things. Dinner, he said. Tomorrow night, if you're not working. Nothing fancy. Just let Noah show Ava his dinosaur collection and we'll order pizza. Let these 2 kids be weird together for a few hours. Sophie smiled, tired and beautiful. Pizza sounds perfect. Yeah? Yeah. She shifted Ava's weight. I should get her to bed. We both have early mornings. Sophie? Ethan hesitated. If Marcus comes back, if anything happens, you call me, day or night. I mean it. You've already done so much. I live 50 feet away. It's not hard to walk 50 feet. Still. They stood in the doorway for a moment, 2 broken people who'd stumbled into each other's orbits by accident. Then Sophie nodded once and stepped inside, and Ethan heard the new deadbolt slide home with a solid click. He carried Noah back across the wet grass, put his son to bed without waking him, pulling the dinosaur blanket up to his chin, stood in the doorway of Noah's room and watched him sleep, really sleep, without the nightmares that usually plagued him. Then Ethan walked through his mansion, past the expensive art, the imported furniture, the crystal chandeliers, and stopped in the middle of his living room. The house still felt empty, but for the first time in 3 years, it didn't feel dead. 2 coffee mugs sat on the kitchen counter where the kids had made hot chocolate. A book lay open on the couch where Sophie had been reading, small signs that people had been here, that life had happened in these rooms instead of just silence. Ethan picked up the book. Poetry. Mary Oliver. The page was marked at a poem about wild geese, about not having to be good, about letting the soft animal of your body love what it loves. He read it twice, then closed the book gently and set it aside. Outside, rain began to fall again, softer this time, gentle instead of violent. Ethan stood at the window and watched water run down the glass, thinking about broken doors and hot chocolate and a little girl who'd been brave enough to ask a stranger for help. Thinking about how sometimes salvation showed up in unexpected packages. Thinking about tomorrow night, pizza, dinosaurs, dragons named Mr. Crunch with excellent manners. Thinking about how maybe, just maybe, he was ready to stop surviving and start living again. The rain fell, the house settled, and for the first time in 3 years, Ethan Vale went to bed without dreading the morning. The pizza arrived 40 minutes late and completely wrong. Ethan stood in his doorway Tuesday evening, staring at 2 large pepperoni pizzas when he'd specifically ordered 1 cheese and 1 vegetarian. The delivery kid looked about 17 and deeply uncomfortable holding boxes in front of a mansion that probably cost more than his parents made in a decade. "I can take them back?" "No, it's fine." Ethan pulled out his wallet, handed over 3 20s for a $30 order. "Keep it." The kid's eyes went wide. "Seriously?" "Seriously. Get out of here before the rain starts again." He closed the door and carried the pizzas into the kitchen where Noah sat at the counter, swinging his legs and watching the clock like it might speed up through sheer force of will. "They messed up the order," Ethan said. "Does Ava like pepperoni?" "I have no idea." "Most kids like pepperoni. It's scientifically proven." "Is it?" "Probably." Noah hopped down from the stool. "Can I go get them? They should be here by now." Ethan checked his watch, 6:15. Sophie had texted earlier that she'd be there at 6:30, after her shift at the diner ended and she had time to get Ava changed into clean clothes. "Give them 15 more minutes." "That's forever." "That's 900 seconds." "That's still forever." But Noah climbed back onto the stool, resumed his vigil. He'd been like this since getting home from school, antsy, energetic, asking every 5 minutes what time it was and how much longer, and could he please set up his dinosaur collection now instead of waiting. Ethan had forgotten what excited looked like on his son. He'd almost forgotten Noah was capable of it. The doorbell rang at 6:27. Noah launched himself off the stool and sprinted for the door. Ethan followed at a more measured pace, arriving just as Noah flung it open to reveal Sophie and Ava on the porch. Sophie looked exhausted. Her hair was pulled back in the same messy ponytail, and she wore jeans and a sweater that had seen better years. But she'd put on makeup, just a little, like she'd made an effort, and when she smiled at Noah's enthusiastic greeting, it reached her eyes. Ava wore a purple dress with a dragon on it and light-up sneakers that flashed when she bounced, which she did immediately upon seeing Noah. "You have a big house," she announced. "I know. Come see my room. I have 73 dinosaurs." 73? "I counted yesterday, twice." "Ava," Sophie warned, "let's at least say hello to Mr. Vale before you pick." But the kids were already gone. Thunder of small feet on the stairs. Ava's light-up shoes leaving a trail of pink flashes in their wake. Sophie and Ethan stood in the doorway, listening to Noah's voice drift down from the second floor, animated and happy, explaining the difference between a Brachiosaurus and a Brontosaurus. "Sorry," Sophie said. "She's been talking about tonight since this morning. I tried to get her to calm down, but Noah's been the same way. I think he asked me what time it was about 400 times. Did you tell him it was scientifically proven?" Ethan blinked. "How did you—" "Ava uses that line constantly, usually when she's trying to convince me that ice cream for breakfast is a good idea." Sophie stepped inside, looking around with the same careful expression she'd worn the night before, like she was afraid to touch anything. "Your home is beautiful." "It's big." "That too." They moved into the kitchen. Ethan pulled plates from the cabinet while Sophie stood awkwardly by the island, hands in her pockets. "The pizza's wrong," he said. "I ordered cheese and vegetarian, but they sent pepperoni. If Ava doesn't eat meat, I can—" "She eats everything. Pepperoni's perfect." "You sure?" "Ethan, you fixed my door at 2 in the morning. I'm not going to complain about pizza toppings." "Fair point." He set the boxes on the counter, grabbed sodas from the fridge. Wondered why this felt so awkward when last night had felt strangely easy. Maybe because last night had been a crisis. Crisis had rules, clear steps. This was just dinner, normal human interaction, something Ethan had apparently forgotten how to do. How was work? He asked. Long. We had a convention group come through, 50 people all wanting separate checks and complicated modifications. Sophie finally moved, taking a seat at the island. But the tips were decent, so I'm not complaining. You work at Murphy's Diner, right? You know it? I drive past it every morning. Never stopped. You should. Phyllis makes the best pancakes in the state, probably the country. Sophie accepted the soda he offered. How long have you lived here? 5 years. Bought it right after Noah was born. Ethan leaned against the counter. Rebecca wanted space for him to grow up, room to run around. It's a good place for a kid. It's a lonely place for a kid whose dad works 80 hours a week. The admission surprised them both. Sophie looked at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. My ex used to say I worked too much too, she said quietly. When we were together, he wanted me home, cooking dinner, taking care of Ava. But someone had to pay rent, and his idea of employment was selling weed to his buddies and calling it entrepreneurship. That why you left him? That's why I kicked him out. Leaving would imply I had somewhere else to go. She picked at the label on her soda can. The house we're in now, it's a rental, month to month. I can barely afford it, but it's ours. Me and Ava. No one screaming at 3 a.m. about money or respect or whatever else was eating him that day. How long's he been gone? 8 months. Longest 8 months of my life. Sophie met his eyes. You think you know someone. You think love means something. Then you wake up one day and realize you've been trying to fix a person who doesn't want to be fixed. Ethan knew that feeling, not from Rebecca. She'd been whole, complete, the best part of his life, but from himself. From trying to fix grief with work, loneliness with acquisition, emptiness with success. Marcus seemed like he still thinks you belong to him, he said. Marcus thinks a lot of things that aren't true. Sophie's voice went hard. But after last night, after you got him on camera threatening me, breaking down my door, my lawyer says the restraining order should get extended, maybe even upgraded to criminal charges if he violates it again. You have a lawyer? Legal aid. She's overworked and underpaid, but she's good. Sophie smiled slightly. Turns out when you're poor and running from an abusive ex, the state occasionally throws you a bone. If you need better representation, I can't afford better representation. I wasn't asking you to pay for it. Sophie's expression shuddered. I don't take charity. It's not charity, it's… What? Neighbors helping neighbors? She stood, putting distance between them. You don't even know me, Ethan. You don't know anything about my situation except what you saw in one night. For all you know, I'm the problem. Maybe I provoked him. Maybe I deserved… Don't! Ethan's voice cut through her spiraling. Don't do that. Don't make excuses for someone who terrorized you and your daughter. I'm not making excuses, I'm being realistic. People like you don't just help people like me without expecting something back. People like me. Rich people, powerful people. People who can afford to throw money at problems and make them disappear. Sophie wrapped her arms around herself. I've been on my own since I was 17. I know how the world works. Nobody gives without taking. Laughter erupted from upstairs. Ava's shriek followed by Noah's deeper giggle. The sound of joy, pure and uncomplicated. Ethan moved around the island, keeping space between them but closing the distance enough to matter. You want to know what I expect in return? Yes. I expect you to let my son play with your daughter. I expect you to show up for pizza when we invite you. I expect you to let me do one decent thing in a life that's been pretty damn empty of decent things lately. He paused. And maybe I expect you to give me the benefit of the doubt long enough to prove I'm not like whatever men you've known before. Sophie studied him, walls still up, but curiosity bleeding through. Why does this matter so much to you? Because Noah smiled yesterday. Actually smiled. For the first time in I don't know how long. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. And I heard him laugh when Ava told him about her dragon with excellent manners. And it was like someone turned a light on in a room that's been dark for 3 years. So this is about Noah. This is about both of them, both of us. He met her eyes. You said last night that grief doesn't bounce. That it just sits there waiting for you to figure out what to do with it. Well, I haven't figured it out, but watching our kids together yesterday made it feel less heavy. Sophie's shoulders dropped slightly. Ava hasn't had a real friend in months. Kids at daycare don't invite her to birthday parties because I can't afford the fancy presents their parents expect. She spends most of her time with me or alone. Then let them have this. Let them have each other. A long pause. Then Sophie nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? Okay. She moved back to the island, sat down again. But I'm paying for pizza next time. There's going to be a next time? Well, I can't let you think pepperoni is scientifically proven to be the best pizza. That's objectively false. It's obviously cheese. Ethan felt his mouth twitch. Pretty sure it's mushroom. You're insane. Says the woman who thinks plain cheese is superior. It's a classic for a reason. It's boring for a reason. Sophie laughed. Actually laughed, the sound surprising them both. Did we just have our first fight about pizza? I think we did. That might be the most normal thing that's happened to me in a year. Something in Ethan's chest loosened. He grabbed the pizza boxes, plates, napkins. Come on, let's feed these kids before they eat the dinosaurs. They climbed the stairs together, following the sounds of imagination to Noah's room. The door was wide open, and the scene inside made Ethan stop cold. Noah's carefully organized dinosaur collection had been transformed into an elaborate landscape. Toy cars became mountains, books stacked into cliffs. A blue blanket stretched across the floor as an ocean. And in the middle of it all, Noah and Ava crouched together, moving plastic figures through their created world, narrating an epic battle between herbivores and carnivores that somehow also involved a dragon named Mr. Crunch. And then the Triceratops said, "Mr. Crunch, we need your help, because the mean T-Rex ate all the vegetables." Ava's voice was high and dramatic. But Mr. Crunch was sleeping in his volcano, Noah continued, moving a stuffed dragon Ethan had never seen before. So the Brachiosaurus had to wake him up by singing the volcano song. What's the volcano song? I don't know, we're making it up. They burst into an off-key rendition of something that rhymed lava with Java and involved a lot of roaring. Sophie covered her mouth, shoulders shaking with silent laughter. Ethan just stared, trying to reconcile this animated child with the quiet boy who'd been sleepwalking through life for 3 years. "Pizza's here," he announced. 2 heads whipped around. "Already?" Noah looked genuinely disappointed. "We were just getting to the good part." "The good part can wait 20 minutes, Sophie said. "Come eat." "But Mom," Ava Marie Carter, "don't make me count to 3. Ava scrambled to her feet. "She uses the middle name. That means business." "My dad does that too," Noah said. "Noah Alexander Vale means I'm in real trouble." "Have you been in real trouble?" "Once. I accidentally broke a vase that cost more than a car." "How do you accidentally break a vase?" "Physics." They filed downstairs, still chattering, leaving the adults to follow. "Where'd the dragon come from?" Ethan asked Sophie quietly. "Ava's backpack. Mr. Crunch goes everywhere with us. Usually he stays in the bag, but I guess she felt comfortable enough to bring him out." "That's good, right?" "That's really good." Sophie watched her daughter skip down the stairs ahead of them. "She only brings him out around people she trusts." Dinner was chaos in the best possible way. Ava talked with her mouth full and had to be reminded 3 times to swallow before speaking. Noah kept jumping up to grab things he'd forgotten. Napkins, more soda, the Parmesan cheese that Ethan didn't even know they had. Sophie tried to maintain some semblance of order while also fielding 100 questions from Ava about why Ethan's house was so big and whether he had a swimming pool and could they go swimming sometime. "It's almost winter, baby. Too cold for swimming. Indoor pools exist," Ava said matter-of-factly. "That's scientifically proven." Ethan caught Sophie's eye across the table and grinned. She rolled her eyes but smiled back. "We do have a pool," he admitted, "but it's covered for the season, maybe next summer." "That's forever away." "That's 8 months, Noah corrected. "Probably, depending on when summer starts." "When does summer start?" "I don't know. I'm 6, not a calendar." Ava dissolved into giggles. Sophie looked at Ethan with an expression that said, "Help me," but he was laughing too hard to intervene. After pizza, the kids went back upstairs to continue their dinosaur saga, while Sophie helped Ethan clean up. They worked in comfortable silence, falling into an easy rhythm. She rinsed, he loaded the dishwasher. Simple, domestic. Strange how something so ordinary could feel so significant. "This is nice," Sophie said eventually. "Weird, but nice." "Weird how?" "I don't know. Last night you were a stranger. Tonight we're doing dishes together." She handed him a plate. "My life doesn't usually move this fast." "Mine either." Ethan took the plate, their fingers brushing briefly. "Usually takes me weeks to trust someone enough to let them in my house. Months before I'd introduce them to Noah." "What changed?" "You needed help, and I needed—" He paused, trying to find the right words. "I needed to remember what it felt like to be useful for something other than signing checks." Sophie turned off the water, leaned against the sink. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "What happened to your wife?" Ethan had been asked this question 100 times, by board members, business partners, well-meaning acquaintances at charity galas. He usually gave the same polite, distant answer. "A car accident. Very tragic. Rather not discuss it." But standing in his kitchen with this woman who'd shared her own scars, the truth came easier. Rebecca was driving home from a fundraiser. Some drunk driver ran a red light going 60 in a 35 zone. Killed her instantly. He gripped the edge of the counter. Noah was at home with the nanny. I was in Tokyo for a business meeting that could have been an email. By the time I got the call, she'd been dead for 3 hours. "I'm sorry." "Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back." He heard the bitterness in his voice, tried to soften it. "I spent the first year blaming the drunk driver, second year blaming myself for not being there, third year trying not to blame anyone and just survive." "What year are you in now?" "I don't know. Maybe the fourth. Maybe still the third." Ethan looked at her. "You ever feel like you're just going through the motions? Like you're watching your life happen instead of living it?" "Every day." Sophie moved closer. "After I kicked Marcus out, I thought things would get easier. But being alone with Ava, barely making rent, working doubles just to afford daycare, some days I'm so tired I can't remember why I'm fighting so hard." "Then you look at Ava." "Then I look at Ava." Sophie's voice went soft. "And I remember." Upstairs, something crashed. Both adults froze. "We're okay," Noah's voice called down. "The pterodactyl just knocked over a lamp, but it didn't break." Noah Alexander Vale. "It really didn't break. Come see." Ethan and Sophie climbed the stairs again, expecting disaster. Instead, they found Noah holding a lamp that had indeed fallen, but miraculously survived, while Ava stood on his bed with Mr. Crunch held high, reenacting what appeared to be an aerial battle scene. "The pterodactyl needed to fly," Ava explained, "but there wasn't enough room, so he accidentally hit the lamp with his wing. Wings don't work like that," Noah added helpfully, "but we're using imagination physics." Sophie pinched the bridge of her nose. "Baby, get down from the bed before you hurt yourself." "But the aerial battle can happen on the ground. Pterodactyls land sometimes." "Do they?" "Scientifically proven." Ava hopped down, apparently satisfied with this logic. Ethan set the lamp back on the nightstand, making a mental note to move anything breakable out of the room before the next playdate. The thought stopped him cold. Next playdate. He was already thinking about next time, already planning around these two people who'd entered his life less than 24 hours ago. "It's getting late," Sophie said, checking her phone. "Ava's got daycare tomorrow, and I have the early shift." "No," Ava whined. "We're not done with the story." "The story will still be here next time." "When's next time?" Sophie looked at Ethan. He looked back, reading the question in her eyes. "How fast are we doing this? How quickly do we let these kids get attached when we barely know each other?" But Noah was watching too, hopeful and excited in a way Ethan hadn't seen since Rebecca died. And Ava had her hands clasped together in exaggerated pleading, Mr. Crunch tucked under one arm. "Friday?" Ethan suggested. "If your mom's not working." "I'm off Friday," Sophie said slowly. "We could do dinner again. Or lunch. Whatever works." "Can we finish the dinosaur story?" Noah asked. "And introduce the underwater dragons?" Ava added. "There are underwater dragons now?" "There are always underwater dragons," Ava said, like this was obvious. "They're scientifically proven." Sophie laughed, the sound lighter than Ethan had heard yet. "Friday works. But we're bringing food this time. I'm not letting you pay for everything." "Deal." They gathered Ava's things, her backpack, her jacket. Mr. Crunch, who'd briefly been forgotten in the excitement. Noah walked them to the door, dragging his feet, asking if Friday was really only 3 days away, or if it was longer. 3 days, Sophie confirmed. 72 hours. That's 4,320 minutes, Noah calculated quickly. That's a lot of minutes. Time moves faster when you're having fun, Ethan said. But I'm having fun now, so it should move slower. Noah's logic was impeccable and completely wrong. That doesn't make sense. Very little in life makes sense, buddy. Sophie and Ava stepped onto the porch. The night was clear, stars visible, the earlier rain completely gone. Their little rental house sat dark across the yard, the new door Ethan had installed clearly visible even from this distance. Thank you, Sophie said, for tonight, for everything. Thank you for coming. We should probably exchange phone numbers, in case something comes up before Friday. Good idea. They swapped phones, typed in numbers, handed them back. Ethan looked at his screen, Sophie Carter with a little smiley face emoji she'd added at the end. Something about that small gesture made him smile. Good night, Mr. Ethan, Ava called, waving enthusiastically. Good night, Ava. Good night, Mr. Crunch. Mr. Crunch says good night too, but you can't hear him because he's shy around new people. Tell him I understand completely. They walked across the lawn together, Ava's light-up shoes flashing pink in the darkness, Sophie's hand firm on her daughter's shoulder. Ethan watched until they disappeared inside their house, the porch light clicking on, the new deadbolt sliding home with that solid sound that meant safety. Noah leaned against him. I really like them, Dad. Me too. Is it okay to like them this much, when we just met them? I think so. Sometimes you meet people and it just feels right. Like how you knew Mom was the one. Ethan's chest tightened. Something like that. They stood in the doorway for another moment, watching Sophie's house, the warm light glowing in the windows as she got Ava ready for bed. Then Noah yawned and Ethan steered him upstairs to his own room. The dinosaur landscape was still set up, exactly as the kids had left it. Ethan started to clean it up, but Noah stopped him. Leave it, please, so we can show Ava on Friday that we kept it safe. It'll be in the way all week. I don't care. It's important. Ethan looked at his son, at the hope in his eyes, the possibility that maybe life could be good again. And he thought about Sophie's words. Grief doesn't bounce. It just sits there waiting for you to figure out what to do with it. Maybe this was what you did with it. Maybe you let new people in, even when it was scary. Maybe you built dinosaur landscapes and left them up for 3 days because your kid had finally found something worth protecting. Okay, Ethan said. We'll leave it. Really? Really? But if I step on a stegosaurus in the middle of the night, I'm blaming you. Noah grinned and dove into bed. Ethan tucked him in, turned on the nightlight shaped like a moon that Rebecca had bought years ago. Dad? Yeah? Do you think you'll ever stop missing Mom? The question gutted him. No, I don't think I'll ever stop. Good. Noah pulled his blanket up to his chin. I don't want to stop either, but maybe it's okay to be happy again even when we're still sad? Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, his throat tight. When'd you get so smart? I've always been smart. You've just been too busy to notice. It was said without accusation, just simple truth, and it hurt worse than any anger would have. You're right, Ethan said quietly. I have been too busy, but I'm working on that. I know. You fixed Sophie's door instead of going to work. I told my assistant to cancel my morning meetings. All of them? All of them? Ethan smoothed Noah's hair back. You're more important than any meeting. Even the important ones? Especially the important ones. Noah considered this. Sophie's nice. Yeah, she is. Ava's weird but good weird. The best kind of weird. Do you think they'll stay? Or will they leave like everyone else? The question hung in the air between them. Ethan wanted to promise they'd stay forever, but he'd learned the hard way that forever wasn't something you could guarantee. Rebecca had taught him that. I don't know what's going to happen, he said honestly, but I know they're here now. And now is pretty good. Now is pretty good, Noah echoed. Then, quieter. I'm glad you helped them. Me too, buddy. Me too. He stayed until Noah fell asleep, watching the rise and fall of his son's chest, listening to the quiet sounds of the house settling around them. Then he walked downstairs, poured himself a drink he didn't really want, and stood at the window overlooking Sophie's house. A light was still on in what he assumed was Ava's bedroom. He could see Sophie's silhouette moving past the window, tucking her daughter in, reading a bedtime story maybe. Normal parent things he used to do before grief made everything feel like moving through water. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. "Thank you again for tonight. Ava hasn't stopped talking about Noah and the dinosaurs. I think she's decided they're best friends now." Ethan typed back. "Noah feels the same way. Fair warning, he's going to ask if Friday can come faster. Probably multiple times. Ava's already asked twice since we got home. How'd you answer?" "I told her that good things are worth waiting for." Ethan stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, "Smart answer. I have my moments." A pause. Then, "Sleep well, Ethan. You too, Sophie." He watched her light go off, watched the house go dark except for a small nightlight visible through Ava's window. Then he finished his drink, rinsed the glass, and headed upstairs to his own room. The bed felt too big, like it always did, but tonight the emptiness felt less oppressive. Tonight he fell asleep thinking about Friday, about pizza and dinosaurs and underwater dragons, about a little girl's light-up shoes and a woman who fought like hell for her daughter, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he was allowed to want this. 3 days, 72 hours, 4,320 minutes. It seemed like forever. It seemed like not nearly enough time. Friday didn't come faster, no matter how many times the kids asked. Wednesday dragged, Thursday crawled, and by Friday afternoon, Ethan found himself leaving the office at 3:30, something he hadn't done in years, because Noah had texted him a simple message. "Please come home early. Want to help get ready." His assistant had stared at him like he'd announced he was retiring to become a professional surfer. "You're leaving, now, but the Hendricks meeting, reschedule it." "For when?" "Monday, Tuesday." "I don't care." Ethan had grabbed his jacket, his keys. "If there's an emergency, call me. Otherwise, I'll see you Monday morning." The drive home felt different. Usually traffic was something to endure, to rage against, to use as an excuse for why he couldn't make it to Noah's school events or parent-teacher conferences. Today he barely noticed it. His mind was already home, already imagining Noah's face when he walked through the door hours earlier than expected. The house smelled like cleaning products when he arrived. Ethan followed the scent to the kitchen where Noah stood on a step stool wiping down the already spotless counters with intense concentration. "What are you doing?" Noah spun around so fast he nearly fell off the stool. "Dad, you're early!" "You asked me to be." "I didn't think you actually would." Noah climbed down, abandoning the cloth. "Mrs. Peterson said you never come home early." "Mrs. Peterson talks too much." But the comment stung because it was true. "What's with the cleaning?" "I wanted the kitchen to look nice, for when Sophie and Ava get here." Noah looked suddenly uncertain. "Is that weird?" "No, that's thoughtful." Ethan looked around at the gleaming surfaces, the straightened chairs, the fresh flowers someone had put in a vase on the island. "Did you do all this?" "Mrs. Peterson helped, but it was my idea." Noah fidgeted with the edge of his shirt. "Do you think Sophie will notice?" "I think she'll think we went to a lot of trouble for her." "Is that bad?" "Nobody, that's good." They spent the next hour preparing together. Noah insisted on setting the table properly. Plates, forks, knives in the right places, napkins folded into triangles. He showed Ethan the playlist he'd made on the tablet, a mix of songs that he claimed were scientifically proven to be good for dinner parties. He'd even drawn a welcome sign for Ava with markers, featuring a detailed dinosaur landscape and a dragon that was supposed to be Mr. Crunch, but looked more like a deformed lizard. "It's perfect," Ethan said, and meant it. "You think Ava will like it?" "I think Ava will love it." At 5:45, Noah started watching the driveway. At 5:50, he asked if maybe they'd forgotten. At 5:58, he wondered if something bad had happened. "They're not even late yet," Ethan pointed out, "but what if—" The doorbell rang. Noah was off like a shot, yanking open the door before Ethan could remind him to check who it was first. But it was Sophie and Ava, right on time. Sophie carrying a canvas grocery bag, and Ava clutching Mr. Crunch and bouncing on her light-up shoes. "We brought stuff for tacos," Ava announced. "Mom said we're making them together." "All of us?" Noah asked. All of us. Ava pushed past him into the house. Where's the dinosaur place? Did you keep it safe like you promised? It's exactly how we left it. Come see. They thundered upstairs, leaving the adults alone. Sophie stepped inside, setting the grocery bag on the floor. She looked different tonight. Hair down instead of pulled back, wearing a dress instead of jeans, a touch of color on her lips. She caught Ethan staring and looked suddenly self-conscious. Too much? No, you look beautiful, he wanted to say. But that felt like too much too soon. Really nice. Ava insisted I wear the pretty dress. Apparently my usual outfit wasn't appropriate for a fancy dinner party. Sophie rolled her eyes. She's 4 and already has opinions about my wardrobe. Noah cleaned the entire kitchen and made a playlist. Did he really? And a welcome sign. He's upstairs dying for Ava to see it. Sophie smiled, some of the nervousness fading. They're good kids. Yeah, they are. Ethan picked up the grocery bag. You really didn't have to bring all this. I told you I was paying for food this time. You fixed my door, bought pizza twice, and didn't even flinch when Ava knocked over your probably very expensive lamp. Sophie followed him to the kitchen. Let me contribute something. The lamp was $50 at Target. Liar. I saw the tag on the bottom. $200 minimum. Okay, $200, but insurance covers acts of pterodactyl. Sophie laughed, and the sound filled the kitchen in a way that made Ethan realize how quiet this house usually was. How much silence he'd been living with, mistaking it for peace. They unpacked the groceries together. Ground beef, tortillas, cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, sour cream, salsa. Simple ingredients for a simple meal. Nothing fancy. But watching Sophie move around his kitchen, finding bowls without asking where they were kept, commenting on how organized everything was, felt strangely intimate. You cook much? She asked, pulling out a cutting board. I reheat takeout much. Actual cooking? Not since Rebecca died. She liked to cook? Loved it. She said it was therapeutic. I never understood it until... He stopped. Until? Until Tuesday night doing dishes with you. There's something calming about it, the routine. Sophie started dicing tomatoes with practiced efficiency. I cook every night for Ava. Nothing fancy, but kid-friendly. She's in a mac and cheese phase right now that I'm pretty sure will last until college. Noah lived on chicken nuggets for 8 months after Rebecca died. Wouldn't eat anything else. What changed? I stopped trying to force vegetables and started putting them on his plate without comment. One day he just ate them. Ethan pulled out a pan for browning the meat. Grief makes kids weird about food. Grief makes everyone weird about everything. Sophie finished the tomatoes, moved on to the lettuce. After I kicked Marcus out, Ava wouldn't sleep alone for 2 months. She'd wake up screaming that the bad man was back. I ended up sleeping on her floor until she felt safe again. That must have been hell. It was worth it. She sleeps through the night now, most nights. Sophie paused, knife hovering over the cutting board. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you doing this? Not just tonight, but all of it. The door, the dinners, letting our kids become friends when you don't know anything about us. Ethan turned on the burner, let the pan heat. You asked me that Tuesday. You didn't really answer. I said Noah needed this. That's part of it. But there's more, isn't there? Sophie set down the knife, faced him fully. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're lonely. And I know lonely. I've been living with it for years, so I guess what I'm asking is, are we just convenient? Someone to fill the empty spaces until you find something better? The question should have offended him. Instead, it made him respect her more. You want the honest answer? Always. I am lonely. So lonely, I forgot what it felt like to actually want to come home at the end of the day. Ethan added the ground beef to the pan, the sizzle filling the silence. And yeah, you and Ava filled some of that emptiness. But it's not because you're convenient, it's because you're real. Real. Everyone in my life wants something from me. Board members want decisions. Employees want approval. Business partners want deals. Even the women I've tried dating since Rebecca, they wanted the house, the money, the lifestyle. He stirred the meat, not looking at her. But you tried to refuse my help. You insisted on paying for tonight. You don't want anything from me except maybe to let our kids play together. And that's the most honest thing anyone's offered me in 3 years. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then, for the record, I'm lonely too, and scared, because Ava's getting attached to Noah, and She stopped. You're what? I'm getting attached to the idea of this, of normal Friday dinners and kids laughing upstairs and someone to cook with who doesn't ask me why I'm not trying harder to fix things with my ex. Sophie wrapped her arms around herself. But I've been hurt before. I've trusted before. And I don't know if I can survive getting it wrong again. I don't know if I can either. Ethan turned off the burner, faced her. So maybe we just take it slow. Keep doing Friday dinners. Let the kids be friends. Don't put pressure on whatever this is until we figure out what it is. You'd be okay with that? Taking it slow? Sophie, I've spent 3 years barely functioning. Slow is the only speed I know right now. She smiled, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. Okay, slow. Slow. But for the record, Sophie moved closer, close enough that Ethan could smell her shampoo, something floral and simple. This is already more than I expected to have in my life, so thank you. Before Ethan could respond, thunder of small feet on the stairs announced the kids' return. Noah burst into the kitchen first, Ava right behind him, both talking over each other about the dinosaur landscape and how Mr. Crunch had decided he was actually a herbivore now, which changed everything about the battle dynamics. Can we help make tacos? Ava asked, climbing onto a stool at the island. Absolutely, Sophie said, switching instantly into mom mode. But first, wash your hands, both of you. We washed them upstairs, Noah protested. Dinosaurs aren't clean. Wash again. The kids grumbled but obeyed, racing each other to the sink. Ethan caught Sophie's eye and she shrugged. Mom rules are non-negotiable. I'm learning that. They made tacos together, all 4 of them in the kitchen at once. Organized chaos. Noah showed Ava how to layer ingredients in the optimal order. Ava insisted that cheese went first, which was objectively wrong, but she defended it with scientific reasoning that made no sense but was delivered with such confidence that Noah actually considered it. Sophie refereed their debate while simultaneously keeping them from making a complete mess. Ethan mostly stayed out of the way and watched, committing every moment to memory. This is what a family looks like, he thought. Not perfect, not organized. Just people who cared about each other, trying to make dinner together without setting anything on fire. They ate at the kitchen island instead of the formal dining room because it felt less like an event and more like actually living. Ava talked about her day at daycare, how she'd built a castle in the sandbox and defended it from the mean boy who tried to kick it over. Noah shared a story about his teacher letting him show the class his rock collection because they were studying geology. You have a rock collection? Ava asked, eyes wide. 73 rocks. I counted yesterday. You count everything. Numbers are important. Dragons are more important. Nothing's more important than numbers. That's scientifically incorrect. Sophie and Ethan watched them argue, not intervening, letting the kids work through their disagreement without adult interference. Eventually they compromised. Rocks and dragons were equally important, and anyone who said otherwise was wrong. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Noah put on his playlist, a mix of pop songs and movie soundtracks that was actually pretty good. Ava demanded they play a game, which turned into an elaborate version of hide and seek that involved Mr. Crunch as a seeking dragon, and all the participants having to make dinosaur noises when they were found. Ethan ended up hiding behind a couch with Sophie, both of them trying not to laugh, while Ava stomped around the living room making what she claimed were authentic dragon sounds. This is ridiculous, Sophie whispered. This is the best Friday I've had in years, Ethan whispered back. Really? Really? They were inches apart in the cramped space behind the couch, close enough that Ethan could see the flecks of gold in Sophie's eyes, the small scar on her chin, the way she bit her lower lip when she was nervous, close enough that it would take almost nothing to lean forward and kiss her. He didn't. Too soon. Too fast. They'd agreed on slow, but the wanting was there, sharp and surprising. Found you! Ava's face appeared over the top of the couch. Mr. Crunch wins! The moment broke. They climbed out from behind the couch, both a little flushed, not quite meeting each other's eyes. The kids didn't notice, already arguing about whether the game should continue or if they should build a new fort instead. By 8:30, Ava was yawning between sentences. By 9, she was asleep on the couch with Mr. Crunch tucked under her arm, mouth slightly open, completely spent from the excitement. Sophie brushed hair off her daughter's face with infinite gentleness. I should get her home. You could stay. The words were out before Ethan could stop them. Not like that. I mean, There are guest rooms. She's already asleep, and waking her up to move her seems... Ethan. Too much. I'm being too much. No. Sophie stood facing him. You're being kind, but we should go home. Establish some boundaries before the kids start thinking we live here. She was right. Ethan knew she was right, but disappointment settled in his chest anyway. Next Friday? He asked. Next Friday. Sophie smiled. Maybe we could do something different. Take the kids somewhere instead of just staying inside. Like what? There's a children's museum downtown. Ava's been asking to go for months, but the admission's expensive and She stopped. Sorry, I wasn't hinting for you to pay. I know you weren't, but what if I wanted to? What if we took both kids, made a day of it? My treat. Sophie hesitated, pride and practicality warring in her expression. Can we split it? You're impossible. I'm independent. There's a difference. Fine. We'll split it. Ethan would figure out how to secretly pay for the whole thing later. Next Friday, museum and lunch. Deal. Noah appeared from upstairs where he'd gone to use the bathroom. Ava's leaving? She's already asleep, buddy. Oh. Noah looked genuinely sad. Can I walk them home? It's late. Please? I want to make sure they get there safe. Sophie's expression softened. That's very sweet, Noah. They made an odd little parade across the dark lawn, Ethan carrying a sleeping Ava, Sophie with the grocery bag and Mr. Crunch, Noah walking beside them, chattering quietly about the museum trip and how there was supposedly a whole section about dinosaurs that was going to blow Ava's mind. At Sophie's door, Ethan carefully transferred Ava into her mother's arms. The little girl didn't wake, just made a small sound and snuggled closer to Sophie. Thank you, Sophie said quietly. For tonight. For all of this. Thank you for the tacos, for being here, for... Ethan stopped, aware of Noah listening. Just thank you. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Noah. Night, Sophie. Night, Ava. Noah waved even though Ava couldn't see it. The door closed. The deadbolt clicked. The porch light stayed on. Ethan and Noah walked back across the lawn together, not speaking, comfortable in the silence. Inside, Noah went straight upstairs to brush his teeth without being asked. Ethan cleaned up the kitchen, putting away leftovers, loading the dishwasher, wiping down the counters Noah had already cleaned earlier. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Ava woke up just long enough to tell me tonight was the best night of her whole life. Then she passed out again. Ethan smiled, typed back. Noah said the same thing, minus the passing out part. He's still wired. Museum next Friday? Definitely. A pause. Then, this is good, right? What we're doing? Ethan stared at the message, thought about Sophie hiding behind the couch with him, about the way she'd looked at him in the kitchen, about how easy it felt to have her in his space. This is really good, he typed. Scary, but good. Scary how? Like remembering how to feel things again after being numb for so long. Several minutes passed. Then, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Sleep well, Sophie. You too. Ethan set down his phone and looked around his kitchen. It was a mess. Taco shells scattered on the counter, salsa spilled by the stove, dishes piled in the sink despite his best efforts. The living room was worse. Couch cushions everywhere from fort building, toys scattered, Noah's playlist still playing quietly from the speaker. It was perfect. He was halfway up the stairs when he heard the car. At first, he thought it was just someone turning around in the driveway. Happened occasionally, people using his circular drive to change direction. But the engine shut off. A door slammed. And something in the sound made the hair on the back of Ethan's neck stand up. He moved to the window. A beat-up pickup truck sat in his driveway. And walking toward Sophie's house, visible in the glow of her porch light, was a large man Ethan recognized even from a distance. Marcus. Ethan was moving before he made a conscious decision. Down the stairs, out the front door, across the lawn. He reached Sophie's porch just as Marcus raised his fist to pound on the door. Walk away. Ethan's voice was cold, controlled. Right now. Marcus spun around, and the smell hit Ethan immediately. Alcohol and something else, something chemical. The man's eyes were unfocused, pupils dilated, drunk and high, just like last time. Maybe worse. The rich neighbor. Marcus's words slurred together. Coming to save the day again. You're violating a restraining order. Leave or I call the police. She's my girl. I got every right to... She's not your girl. She made that clear. The courts made that clear. Ethan pulled out his phone. You've got 10 seconds. You think I'm scared of cops? You think... Marcus took a step closer, swaying slightly. You think you can just take what's mine? Move in on my family like some kind of hero? They were never yours. And I'm done being polite. Ethan dialed 911, kept his eyes on Marcus. I need police at 247 Lakewood Drive. There's a man violating a restraining order and threatening... Marcus lunged. Ethan had enough warning to sidestep, but not enough to avoid completely. Marcus's shoulder caught him in the ribs, sending them both crashing into Sophie's porch railing. Wood splintered. Pain exploded through Ethan's side. Then the front door flew open. Get away from him! Sophie stood in the doorway, phone in one hand, something else in the other that Ethan couldn't quite see. But her voice was loud, clear, carrying across the yard. Sophie, get back inside. I called the cops. She was shaking, but her voice didn't waver. They're 2 minutes away. Security cameras caught everything. You're done, Marcus. Marcus froze, looking between Sophie and Ethan. For a moment, Ethan thought he might actually swing, might decide that prison was worth the satisfaction of landing one good punch. But sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. This isn't over, Marcus spat. He shoved away from Ethan, stumbled toward his truck. You hear me? This isn't up. Yeah, it is. Sophie stepped onto the porch, and Ethan realized what she was holding. A baseball bat, gripped with white knuckles. I'm done being scared of you, done letting you dictate my life. You come near me or my daughter again, and I won't wait for the cops to handle it. Marcus stared at her, something flickering across his face. Shock, maybe, or recognition that the woman he'd terrorized had finally broken. Then he spat on the ground, climbed into his truck, and peeled out of the driveway just as police cars rounded the corner. 3 officers piled out, hands on weapons, demanding to know what happened. Sophie explained calmly while Ethan tried to breathe through the pain in his ribs. One officer took Marcus's license plate information and radioed it in. Another started reviewing the security camera footage on his tablet, footage of everything from Marcus pounding on the door to the tackle to the threats. We'll pick him up tonight, the lead officer said. With this evidence and the existing restraining order, he's looking at felony charges. Good, Sophie said simply. After the police left, after they'd given statements and filed reports and been assured that Marcus would be in custody before morning, Sophie and Ethan stood on her damaged porch and looked at each other. You're hurt, she said. I'm fine. You're holding your side. That's not fine. She moved closer, gentle hands probing his ribs through his shirt. Ethan winced. You need to get that checked. Could be broken. It's probably just bruised. Ethan, I'm fine. Really. He caught her hands, stopping her examination. Are you okay? Did he try to get inside before I got here? No. I heard the truck, looked out the window, called 911 immediately. Sophie's voice cracked slightly. Then I saw him tackle you and I grabbed the bat from Ava's closet and you were incredibly brave. I was terrified. Brave and terrified aren't mutually exclusive. Ethan pulled her closer, careful of his ribs. She came willingly, pressing her face against his shoulder. He's not coming back. Not this time. How do you know? Because he'll be in jail. And when he gets out, there will be so many court orders and legal restrictions that even looking at you wrong will send him back inside. Ethan smoothed her hair back. I'm going to make sure of it. You can't protect us forever. Watch me. Sophie pulled back enough to look at him. Her eyes were red, tears tracking down her cheeks, but she was smiling slightly. You're kind of intense, you know that? I've been told. I like it. Yeah? Yeah. She stood on her toes and kissed his cheek, quick, soft, gone before he could respond. Thank you for being here, for not letting him... You don't have to thank me. I do, though, because you could have stayed inside, could have just called the cops and let them handle it. But you came out here, put yourself between us and him, and... She stopped, voice breaking. Nobody's ever done that for me before. Ethan cupped her face in his hands, thumbs wiping away tears. Then everyone who came before me was a fool. They stood like that for a moment, close enough to kiss properly this time, the moment stretching between them full of possibility. But then a small voice from inside the house called out, "Mommy?" Sophie stepped back. "I need to check on Ava. She probably heard everything. Go. I'll fix the railing tomorrow. You don't have to." "Oh, Sophie, let me fix things. It's kind of what I do." She smiled through her tears. "Okay, thank you. Anytime." Ethan walked back to his house, ribs screaming with every step. Noah sat on the stairs in his pajamas, eyes wide with worry. "Is everyone okay?" "Everyone's fine. Marcus came back, but the police got him." "I saw through the window. He hurt you." "Just a bruise, buddy. Nothing serious." "You should ice it." "When did you become the parent?" "When you started doing dangerous things for Sophie." Noah stood, surprisingly serious for a 6-year-old. "Do you love her?" The question caught Ethan completely off guard. "What?" "Sophie. Do you love her? Because you keep protecting her like Mom used to say, people protect things they love." Ethan sat down on the stairs, pulling Noah down beside him. "It's complicated. That's what adults say when the answer is yes, but they're scared to say it." "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. We established this already." Noah leaned against Ethan's shoulder. "It's okay if you love her. I think Mom would be happy you found someone who makes you smile again." Ethan's throat went tight. "You think so?" "Yeah. Mom always said life's too short to waste it being sad." Noah yawned. "Also, I really like Ava. So if you married Sophie, Ava would be my sister, and that would be scientifically proven to be awesome." "We're not getting married, buddy. We're taking things slow." "Slow is boring. Slow is smart. You're scared." "Yeah, I am." Noah considered this. Then, "That's okay. Being scared and doing it anyway is what brave people do. Mom said that too." "Your mom was a very wise person." "She was." Noah stood, heading toward his room. "Fix the railing tomorrow. Show Sophie you're serious about protecting them. Then maybe ask her on a real date instead of just Friday dinners." "How do you know about dates? You're 6. "I watch TV, Dad. I'm not sheltered." Noah paused at his bedroom door. "Also, ice your ribs. That's not a suggestion." Then he disappeared into his room, leaving Ethan sitting on the stairs trying to figure out when his 6-year-old son had become wiser than him. He iced his ribs, took some painkillers, lay in bed staring at the ceiling and thinking about Sophie's kiss on his cheek, about the way she'd held that baseball bat like she was finally ready to fight back, about Marcus's truck pulling away and knowing that particular nightmare was finally ending. His phone buzzed. Ava's asleep. She didn't hear much, thank goodness. "Are you okay?" "Bruised ribs, nothing serious." "You?" "Shaky but okay. Can't believe he actually came back. Can't believe you came out with a baseball bat. Desperate times." A pause. Noah suggested a real date. Ethan blinked at his phone. "He texted you?" "No." "He told Ava earlier, and Ava told me just now that Noah said his dad should take my mom on a proper date instead of just doing Friday dinners because Friday dinners aren't romantic enough, and also there should be flowers." Despite the pain in his ribs, Ethan laughed. "Our kids are conspiring." "Apparently." "So, would you want to go on a real date?" Ethan stared at the message, thought about slow, thought about taking time, thought about all the reasons this was too fast, too soon, too risky. Then he thought about Sophie standing on her porch with a baseball bat, protecting herself and her daughter, thought about the way she kissed his cheek, thought about how life was too short to waste it being scared. "Yes," he typed. "Saturday night? I'll get a sitter for the kids." "I don't have a sitter I trust. What if they had a sleepover here?" Noah would lose his mind with excitement. "And Mrs. Peterson can supervise." A long pause. Then, "Okay, but you're not paying for everything. We'll negotiate later. Stubborn. Takes one to know one. Good night, Ethan, and thank you for everything." "Good night, Sophie." He set down his phone and closed his eyes, ribs aching, heart racing, more terrified than he'd been in years. But underneath the fear was something else, something that felt almost like hope. Tomorrow, he'd fix Sophie's railing. Next Friday, they'd take the kids to the museum. Saturday night, they'd have their first real date. And maybe, just maybe, he'd finally figure out how to live again instead of just surviving. Saturday morning arrived with Noah shaking Ethan awake at 6:30. Dad, wake up! Ethan groaned, ribs protesting as he rolled over. It's Saturday. Normal people sleep on Saturday. Normal people don't have a date tonight with Sophie. Noah was already dressed, bouncing on the balls of his feet. We need to plan. What are you wearing? Where are you taking her? Did you get flowers like I suggested? I haven't even had coffee yet. Coffee's already made. Mrs. Peterson's downstairs. I told her about the date, and she got all excited and said she'd help prepare. Noah tugged on Ethan's arm. Come on, we have so much to do. Ethan let himself be pulled out of bed, wondering when his 6-year-old had become his social coordinator. Downstairs, Mrs. Peterson was indeed waiting, looking far too cheerful for someone who'd been called in on a Saturday morning. Mr. Vale, Noah told me the wonderful news. A proper date, finally. I was beginning to think you'd sworn off romance entirely. Good morning to you too, Mrs. Peterson. Don't give me that tone. You've been moping around this house for 3 years. It's about time you remembered you're a living, breathing man with needs beyond quarterly reports. She pushed a cup of coffee into his hands. Now sit. We're making a plan. The next hour was simultaneously the most helpful and most embarrassing of Ethan's life. Mrs. Peterson interrogated him about where he was taking Sophie, tisking at his initial suggestion of an expensive French restaurant downtown. Too formal. Too intimidating. The woman works 2 jobs and barely makes rent. You take her somewhere fancy and she'll spend the whole night worrying about which fork to use. Mrs. Peterson crossed her arms. What is she like? I don't know. We've known each other a week. Then think. What have you learned about her in that week? Ethan thought about Sophie in his kitchen, making tacos with practiced ease, Sophie laughing at his terrible jokes, Sophie standing on her porch with a baseball bat, finally ready to fight back. She's practical. Independent. Hates feeling like she owes anyone anything. He paused. And she told me about a diner where she works. Said they have the best pancakes in the country. Murphy's Diner? That's the one. Mrs. Peterson smiled. Then take her somewhere like that, somewhere she can be comfortable. Somewhere you're not throwing money around like it's the solution to everything. I'm not. You are. You've been doing it since Rebecca died. Buying things, fixing things, thinking money can solve problems. Mrs. Peterson's voice softened. But Sophie doesn't need your money. She needs you to show up and be present, to actually see her. The words hit harder than Marcus's tackle had, because they were true. Ethan had spent 3 years using money as a shield, as a way to help without actually getting involved. But Sophie had called him on it from day one, refusing charity, insisting on paying her own way. She didn't want his money. She wanted him. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. There's a place on the waterfront, he said slowly. Local seafood, casual atmosphere. Rebecca and I used to go there before Noah was born. Nothing fancy, just good food and a view. Perfect. Mrs. Peterson nodded approvingly. 7 o'clock reservation. You pick her up at 6:30. Flowers. Simple bouquet, nothing ostentatious. And for the love of everything, dress like a human being, not a CEO. What's wrong with how I dress? You own 17 suits and 3 pairs of jeans. That's what's wrong. Noah giggled from his perch at the kitchen counter. Ethan shot him a look. You think this is funny? I think Mrs. Peterson's right. You dress like you're going to a board meeting all the time. Traitor. Realist. Noah grinned. Wear the blue shirt, the one Mom bought you. Sophie will like it. Something in Ethan's chest tightened. You sure? Yeah, Mom had good taste, and she'd want you to look nice for Sophie. Mrs. Peterson dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. That boy. Too wise for his own good. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of preparation. Ethan made the reservation, ordered flowers from a local shop, dug through his closet to find the blue shirt Noah had mentioned. It still had the tags on it. Rebecca had bought it for their anniversary, the one they'd never gotten to celebrate because she'd died 2 weeks before. He held it for a long moment, thumb running over the soft fabric. Then he carefully removed the tags and hung it up for tonight. At noon, Sophie texted, The kids are losing their minds about the sleepover. Ava's packed and repacked her bag 4 times. Noah's done the same. Currently, he's reorganizing his dinosaur collection by time period instead of size, so Ava can see the proper evolutionary progression. That's the most Noah sentence I've ever read. He's very serious about dinosaur accuracy. Ava thinks they had feathers and wore tiny hats. I'm not sure which of our kids is more chaotic. Definitely Ava. She just asked if we're getting married after tonight. Ethan stared at his phone. What did you tell her? That grown-ups don't get married after one date, that sometimes people just like spending time together. How'd she take it? She said that's scientifically boring, but she'd allow it. Ethan laughed out loud. She's definitely your daughter. Speaking of, I'm nervous. Is that weird? I haven't been on a real date in almost 5 years. Not weird. I'm terrified. Really? Really? I keep thinking about all the ways I could screw this up. Like what? Like being too much or not enough, like saying the wrong thing. Like you realizing I'm just a workaholic who forgot how to be a normal person. Several minutes passed. Then, you fixed my door at 2 a.m. You protected me from my ex. You make my daughter laugh and gave my life back some light. You're not too much. You're not enough. You're exactly what I didn't know I needed. Ethan read the message 3 times. Then, 6:30. I'll pick you up. I'll be ready. Sophie? Yeah? Thank you for giving this a chance. Thank you for asking. The afternoon crawled. Ethan tried to work but couldn't focus, tried to read but the words blurred together. Finally gave up and helped Noah construct an elaborate blanket fort in the living room for the sleepover, complete with a secret password and a no adults allowed policy. Except Mrs. Peterson, Noah clarified. She's providing snacks. Good to know I'm not invited to the fort in my own house. It's not personal, Dad. It's just fort rules. At 5 o'clock, Ethan went upstairs to shower and change. The blue shirt fit perfectly, bringing out his eyes in a way he'd forgotten clothes could. He paired it with dark jeans and the casual jacket Rebecca had always said made him look approachable instead of intimidating. When he came back downstairs, Noah whistled. You clean up good. Where did you learn to whistle? YouTube. Also, you look nervous? I am nervous. Don't be. Sophie already likes you. This is just making it official. When did you become a dating expert? When I started paying attention. Noah straightened Ethan's collar with surprising care. Have fun, okay? And don't talk about work the whole time. That's boring. Noted. And listen when she talks. Really listen. Don't just wait for your turn to speak. Noah, and if you really like her, tell her. Don't play games. Mom always said games were for people who were afraid to be honest. Ethan pulled his son into a hug, careful of his still tender ribs. When did you grow up? I've always been grown up. You just started noticing. Noah hugged him back fiercely. I love you, Dad. I love you too, buddy. The doorbell rang. The florist's delivery. A simple bouquet of wildflowers, nothing ostentatious, exactly what Mrs. Peterson had recommended. Ethan checked his reflection one more time, grabbed his keys, and headed for the door. Good luck, Noah called after him. Remember, listen, don't talk about work and be honest. Got it. And don't come home too early. Stay out late. Live a little. Mrs. Peterson's laughter followed Ethan out the door. The walk across the lawn to Sophie's house felt longer than it should have. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs, the bruised ones and the healthy ones alike. He was 32 years old, had negotiated billion-dollar deals, had addressed stockholders and board members without breaking a sweat. But walking up to Sophie's door for their first real date made his hands shake. He knocked. Waited. Heard movement inside, Sophie's voice telling Ava to give her one more minute. Then the door opened and Ethan forgot how to breathe. Sophie wore a simple green dress that brought out the color of her eyes, her hair falling loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in her usual ponytail. She'd done something with makeup that made her features more defined, more striking. But it was the smile that got him, nervous and genuine and beautiful. Hi, she said. Hi. He held out the flowers. These are for you. They're beautiful. She took them, burying her face in the blooms for a moment. Come in. I just need to put these in water and then we can go. Ethan stepped inside. The house was different than it had been that first night. Cleaner, more organized, small touches that showed Sophie had been trying to make it a real home. Pictures on the walls now, most of them Ava's crayon drawings. A small bookshelf filled with worn paperbacks. A rug that didn't quite match anything but added warmth to the living room. Ava came barreling around the corner, Mr. Crunch clutched in one hand, her sleepover bag in the other. She skidded to a stop when she saw Ethan, eyes going wide. You look fancy. So does your mom. I know, I helped her pick the dress. Ava set down her bag and circled Ethan critically. You didn't bring her chocolate. Was I supposed to? In movies, the man always brings chocolate. It's scientifically romantic. I brought flowers. Flowers are pretty, but you can't eat them. Ava crossed her arms. Next time, bring chocolate, the kind with caramel. Ava Marie Carter, stop critiquing Mr. Vale's date performance, Sophie called from the kitchen. I'm just trying to help. Help by being good for Mrs. Peterson tonight. I'm always good. You're always chaotic. There's a difference. Sophie emerged from the kitchen, flowers arranged in a mason jar. She'd touched up her lipstick, grabbed a jacket that had seen better days but was clean and pressed. Ready? Ready. Ethan offered his arm. Sophie took it, and the simple gesture felt monumental. They said goodbye to Ava, who made them promise to come back and tell her everything about the date. Then they were walking across the lawn together, Sophie's hand tucked into the crook of Ethan's elbow, the evening air cool and crisp around them. I'm terrified, Sophie admitted as they reached Ethan's car. Me too. What if we run out of things to talk about? Then we sit in comfortable silence. What if the food's terrible? Then we leave and get burgers somewhere. What if... She stopped, biting her lip. What if this changes everything? What if we try this and it doesn't work, and then we can't go back to Friday dinners, and the kids lose each other, and... Ethan turned to face her fully, hands on her shoulders. Sophie, breathe. She did, shakily. We're going to dinner. That's it. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people who like each other spending time together. He paused. And if it doesn't work, we'll figure it out. We're adults. We can handle complicated. Can we? We've both survived worse than an awkward first date. That got a small laugh out of her. Fair point. He opened the car door for her. She slid into the passenger seat, looking around at the pristine interior with wide eyes. This car probably costs more than I make in 5 years. It's just a car. It's an Aston Martin. Still just a car. Ethan closed her door, walked around to the driver's side. And for the record, I don't care how much money you make. I care that you're here. Sophie was quiet as he pulled out of the driveway, heading toward the waterfront. Then, can I confess something? Always? I looked up the restaurant, read the reviews, checked the menu. She twisted her hands in her lap. The prices are reasonable. I can afford to split this. I just wanted you to know that. Sophie, I know you said you'd pay, but I need to contribute. I need to feel like an equal partner in whatever this is, not someone you're rescuing. Ethan understood. He'd felt the same way after Rebecca died, when well-meaning friends had tried to help by throwing money at his problems, like their wealth could somehow fill the void she'd left. Okay, he said. We split everything, 50-50. Really? Really? But I'm still paying for dessert. That's non-negotiable. Why dessert? Because I want to, and because the key lime pie at this place is life-changing, and I refuse to let you experience it under financial duress. Sophie laughed, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. You're weird, says the woman who threatened her ex-boyfriend with a baseball bat. That was a completely rational response to an irrational situation. It was also incredibly brave. It was terrifying. My hands shook for an hour afterward. Sophie looked out the window at the passing scenery. But I'm tired of being afraid, tired of letting Marcus's shadow dictate my choices, tired of playing small because it feels safer than taking risks. Is that what tonight is? A risk? The biggest one I've taken in years. She turned to look at him. You scare me, Ethan. I scare you? Not in a bad way. In an I could actually care about you way. In an I could let you in, and you could hurt me way. She paused. And after Marcus, after everything, the idea of being that vulnerable again is terrifying, Ethan finished. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. They drove in silence for a moment, the city lights starting to glow as dusk settled over everything. Then Sophie reached across the console and took his hand. Ethan laced their fingers together, and something in his chest settled. The restaurant was perfect. Casual, but not cheap. Busy, but not crowded. They got a table by the window overlooking the water, watching boats drift past with their running lights glowing in the growing darkness. The server brought menus and water, rattled off the specials, left them alone to decide. This place is beautiful, Sophie said, looking around with genuine appreciation. How'd you find it? Rebecca and I used to come here, before Noah was born, when we were young and broke and thought spending $40 on dinner was extravagant. Ethan smiled at the memory. She always ordered the crab cakes, said they were the only ones in the city that weren't trying too hard. Do you think she'd mind? You bringing me here? No. The answer came easily, surprisingly. She'd probably be relieved I finally stopped hiding from the world. Rebecca hated when people gave up on living. She sounds like she was an incredible person. She was. Stubborn, opinionated, fierce about the things she loved. She would have liked you, I think. You remind me of her sometimes. How? The way you fight for Ava, the way you refuse to accept help even when you desperately need it, the way you turned down my money and insisted on contributing. Ethan paused. Rebecca was the same way. Hated feeling indebted to anyone. Did she come from money? The opposite. Grew up poor, put herself through college, working 3 jobs, married me before I made my first million. She used to joke that she fell in love with my potential, not my bank account. Smart woman. The smartest. She kept me grounded when the business took off. Reminded me that money was just a tool, not a measure of worth. Ethan looked down at the menu without really seeing it. After she died, I forgot that. I threw myself into work, into deals, into building the company bigger and bigger because if I stopped moving, I'd have to feel something. And now I'm remembering what it feels like to be a person instead of a CEO. Thanks to you and Ava. He met Sophie's eyes across the table. You woke something up in me that I thought was dead. Sophie's eyes glistened. You did the same for me. I was so focused on just surviving, making rent, keeping Ava fed and safe, staying one step ahead of Marcus. I forgot what it felt like to want something more than just getting through the day. And now? Now I want... She stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. I want Fridays. I want dinners where the kids make a mess and argue about dinosaurs. I want someone to text goodnight who actually means it. I want... Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. I want you. Ethan reached across the table and took both her hands. You have me. However much or little you want. Whatever speed feels right. I'm here. The server returned to take their order, breaking the moment. They ordered without looking at the menu. Sophie getting the crab cakes on Ethan's recommendation, Ethan getting the grilled salmon. They split an appetizer of calamari and debated whether ranch or marinara was the superior dipping sauce. Ranch is objectively wrong, Sophie argued. Ranch is a perfectly valid choice. Ranch is what people use when they don't appreciate the natural flavors. That's the most pretentious thing I've ever heard you say. I work at a diner. I'm allowed to have opinions about condiments. They were laughing when the food arrived, the conversation flowing easier now. Sophie told him about growing up in foster care, bouncing between homes, aging out of the system at 18 with nothing but a high school diploma and determination. She'd wanted to be a nurse since she was 12, when a kind ER nurse had patched up a split lip from a foster brother's fist and told her she was strong enough to survive anything. I got into nursing school on a scholarship, Sophie said, picking at her crab cakes. Had 1 semester left when I met Marcus. He seemed charming at first, attentive, interested in my life. By the time I realized he was controlling, I was already pregnant with Ava. Did he want you to quit school? He demanded it, said nursing was a waste of time, that I should focus on being a good mother and girlfriend. I was young and scared and convinced he'd change. Sophie set down her fork. I dropped out, took a job waitressing to pay rent while he promised to find work. But the jobs never materialized. The drinking got worse, the anger got worse, and by the time Ava was born, I was trapped. How'd you get out? He stole my tip money 1 too many times. I came home to find him passed out drunk with Ava crying in her crib, diaper unchanged for hours. And something just broke. I packed what I could carry, took Ava to a women's shelter, and filed for a restraining order the next day. That must have taken incredible courage. It felt like giving up, like admitting I'd failed. Sophie met his eyes. But then I looked at Ava, and I realized that staying would have been the real failure. She deserved better. We both did. Ethan squeezed her hand. For what it's worth, I think you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I don't feel strong most days. I feel tired and overwhelmed, like I'm constantly one crisis away from falling apart. That's called being human. Ethan paused. After Rebecca died, I was a mess. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, could barely function. The only thing that kept me going was Noah. Some days I'd look at him and think, if I can just make it through today, just get him fed into school and back home safe, that's enough. Does it get easier? It gets different. The grief doesn't go away, but you learn to carry it better. And some days you even forget to be sad for a while. He smiled slightly. Like tonight, right now. I haven't thought about Rebecca in the last hour. I've just been here with you, enjoying your company, feeling like a person again. Is that okay? Not thinking about her? I think it's what she'd want, for both of us to keep living. They finished dinner slowly, savoring the food and the conversation. Sophie told him about Ava's obsession with dragons, how it had started with a library book and evolved into a full-blown worldview where dragons were the solution to every problem. Ethan told her about Noah's rock collection, how he'd spent 6 months collecting samples and categorizing them by mineral composition before losing interest entirely and moving on to dinosaurs. They're good kids, Sophie said. The best. Ethan signaled for the check, even when they're conspiring to set us up. You think they planned this? Noah told me yesterday I should ask you on a real date. Then Ava told you the same thing. That's not coincidence. Sophie laughed. They're 4 and 6. They shouldn't be that coordinated. Apparently, common interest in getting their parents together transcends age differences. The check arrived. They split it exactly down the middle, Sophie counting out her half in cash with the same care she probably used to budget every dollar. Ethan added a generous tip, but not so generous that Sophie would notice and insist on contributing more. They walked out to the waterfront, the night air cool and fresh. The city lights reflected off the water in shimmering ribbons. Couples strolled past, families with tired children heading home, teenagers skateboarding along the boardwalk despite the signs prohibiting it. I don't want tonight to end, Sophie admitted. Me either. But if we go home now, we can pretend tomorrow that this was just a nice dinner between friends. We can keep the stakes low, keep it safe. Is that what you want? No. She turned to face him fully. I want to stop playing it safe. I want to take the risk. I want... Ethan kissed her. It wasn't planned, wasn't calculated. He just leaned in and pressed his lips to hers, one hand cupping her face, the other resting on her waist. She froze for half a second, surprise maybe, or fear, and then she was kissing him back, hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. It was soft and desperate and perfect. It was everything Ethan had forgotten about connection, about touch, about wanting someone so badly that nothing else mattered. It was Sophie sighing against his mouth, her fingers threading through his hair, her body fitting against his like they'd been made for this. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sophie rested her forehead against his. That was, yeah. I haven't kissed anyone in 3 years. Me either. We're pathetic. We're careful. Ethan ran his thumb along her cheekbone. But maybe it's time to stop being so careful. What does that mean? It means I want this. You, me, whatever we're building. I want Friday dinners and museum trips and goodnight texts. I want Noah and Ava to keep conspiring. I want to wake up in the morning and have a reason to come home at night. He paused. I want to stop surviving and start living with you. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared. Me too. But I'm more scared of walking away from this. What if I mess it up? What if I'm not enough for you? What if you are? Ethan countered. What if we're exactly what each other needs, and we're just too terrified to admit it? Sophie was quiet for a long moment, searching his face for something. Then she smiled, watery but genuine. Okay. Okay? Okay. Let's do this. Let's be terrified together. She kissed him again, quick and sweet. But we're taking it slow. No moving in together after a week. No getting married after a month. We do this right. Slow, Ethan agreed. We can do slow. And we tell the kids. They deserve to know what's happening. Agreed. And if it doesn't work, if we try this and realize we're better as friends, we put them first. We don't let our relationship mess up what they have. Deal. Sophie took his hand, lacing their fingers together. Take me home? They drove back through the city, the radio playing soft jazz, their hands linked across the console. When they pulled into the driveway, both houses were lit up, Ethan's blazing bright with activity, Sophie's dark, except for the porch light she'd left on. "Want to check on the kids?" Ethan asked. "Probably smart." They walked into organized chaos. The living room fort had been completed and was currently hosting what appeared to be an elaborate shadow puppet show. Mrs. Peterson sat on the couch with a book, looking remarkably unfazed by the noise. "How'd it go?" she asked, closing her novel. "Good," Ethan said. "Really good." "I can see that." Mrs. Peterson's eyes sparkled knowingly. "Your lipstick's smudged, Miss Carter." Sophie's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, no." "Relax. I'm happy for you both. It's about time." Mrs. Peterson stood, smoothing her skirt. "The children have been angels. Well, mostly angels. There was an incident with chocolate milk and the carpet, but I handled it." "What kind of incident?" "The kind that's already cleaned up and doesn't need to be discussed." She grabbed her purse. "I'll see myself out. Have a good evening, you two, or what's left of it." After she left, Ethan and Sophie approached the fort cautiously. "Noah? Ava? We're home." Two small faces appeared through the blanket door. "You're back early," Ava accused. "It's almost 10 o'clock, Sophie pointed out. "That's early for a date. Dates are supposed to go until midnight. That's scientifically romantic." "Where do you learn these things?" Sophie asked. "TV. Also, did you kiss?" Both adults froze. That's not appropriate to ask," Sophie stammered. "But did you?" Ethan and Sophie looked at each other. Then, simultaneously, they started laughing. The kind of helpless, genuine laughter that came from pure joy. "Yes," Ethan admitted. "We kissed." Both kids erupted in cheers, high-fiving each other inside the fort. "I knew it," Noah crowed. "I told you they'd kiss." "You owe me Mr. Crunch for a whole day," Ava reminded him. "That was the bet." "Wait, you bet on us?" Sophie asked. "Not money, just Mr. Crunch custody." Ava crawled out of the fort, still in her pajamas. "So are you boyfriend and girlfriend now?" Sophie knelt down to her daughter's level. "We're trying that, seeing if it works. Is that okay with you? Is Mr. Ethan going to be my dad?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Ethan saw Sophie's panic, moved to her side. "That's a big question, Ava," he said gently. "Right now, your mom and I are just spending time together, getting to know each other better. We don't know what's going to happen, but we promise that whatever does happen, you and Noah come first, always." Ava considered this with the seriousness only a 4-year-old could muster. Then she nodded. "Okay, but if you do become my dad, can we get a pool?" Ava, "What?" "It's a reasonable request." Noah emerged from the fort, suddenly shy. "Does this mean we get to see each other more?" "Definitely more," Ethan confirmed. "If that's okay with you." "It's scientifically proven to be okay." Noah grinned. "Can we finish the shadow puppet show now?" "We were just getting to the part where the dragon saves the dinosaurs from the meteor." "Dragons can't save dinosaurs from meteors," Sophie said automatically. "They can in our show," Ava insisted, "because we're using imagination science." "Is that different from regular science?" "Very different. Much better." They spent the next hour watching the kids' elaborate puppet show, which involved plot twists, dramatic reveals, and at least 3 different timeline paradoxes that somehow all made sense in the kids' logic. When Ava finally started yawning, Sophie scooped her up. "Time for bed, baby." "But we didn't finish." "We'll finish tomorrow, promise." Ethan walked them to the door. Sophie shifted Ava's weight, the little girl already half asleep against her mother's shoulder. "Thank you," Sophie said quietly. "For tonight. For everything. Thank you for saying yes." "I'm glad I did." Ethan kissed her again, soft, brief, aware of small eyes potentially watching. "Good night, Sophie." "Good night, Ethan." He watched them cross the lawn, watched Sophie's porch light click on, watched the door close behind them. Then he turned back to his own house, where Noah sat on the stairs waiting. "You really like her, huh?" "Yeah, buddy, I really do." "Good." Noah stood, heading toward his room. "She makes you happy. I haven't seen you this happy in forever." She makes me feel like myself again. Then don't screw it up. Noah Alexander Vale. I'm just saying, you're finally not sad all the time. Don't mess it up by being stupid. Noah paused at his bedroom door. Also, Mom would have liked her. I think you should know that. How do you know? Because Mom always said the right person makes you better. And Sophie makes you better. You smile more. You come home earlier. You fix someone's door at 2 in the morning. Noah shrugged. That's the kind of thing Mom would have done. So yeah, she would have liked Sophie. Ethan crossed the distance between them, pulling Noah into a tight hug. I love you. You know that, right? I know, Dad. I love you too. Noah hugged back just as fiercely. Now, let me go to bed. I'm exhausted from all this emotional heavy lifting. Ethan laughed, released him, watched him disappear into his room. Then he walked through his house, past the fort still standing in the living room, past the kitchen where they'd made tacos, past all the signs that life was happening here again instead of just existence. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Ava's asleep. She told me tonight was the second best night of her life. First was meeting Noah. What'd she say about us? She said, you're nice and you should definitely be her dad because then Noah would be her brother and they could have adventures forever. No pressure, right? None whatsoever. A pause. For what it's worth, I had the best night I've had in years. Me too. Sleep well, Ethan. You too, Sophie. He set down his phone and looked out the window at Sophie's house. Dark now, except for that single porch light. And he thought about kisses on the waterfront, about shadow puppet shows, about a little girl asking if he'd be her dad someday. He thought about possibilities. He thought about tomorrow and next Friday and all the days stretching out ahead of them. He thought about how 3 weeks ago he'd been a ghost living in a mansion full of lights. And now he was a man falling in love with a woman who'd knocked on his door asking for help and ended up saving him instead. Slow, they'd agreed. They'd take it slow. But as Ethan climbed the stairs to bed, ribs still aching but heart finally full, he couldn't help but think that maybe slow was exactly the right speed for building something that could last. 18 months changed everything and nothing at all. The morning Ethan woke up to find Sophie in his kitchen making coffee, like she belonged there, he realized they'd crossed some invisible line without either of them noticing exactly when. She wore one of his old t-shirts and pajama pants, hair a mess, no makeup, humming off-key to whatever song was stuck in her head. She looked perfect in the imperfect way that real life was perfect, not magazine cover beautiful, just real and present and his. Morning, she said, not looking up from the coffee maker. Noah's already up. He and Ava are in the backyard trying to teach Mr. Crunch to play soccer. That's going to go well. Ava's convinced dragons are natural athletes. Noah's trying to explain physics to her. It's adorable and chaotic. Sophie finally turned, coffee mug in hand. How'd you sleep? Better than I have in years. Ethan crossed the kitchen, wrapped his arms around her waist, kissed the top of her head. These small intimacies still felt new enough to be miraculous. You? Good. Ava only woke up once. Nightmare about the bad man coming back. Ethan tensed. Did she? I handled it. She's fine now, but she's been having them more frequently lately. Sophie set down her mug, turned in his arms to face him. I think she knows something's changing, that we're getting more serious, and part of her is scared it won't last. Are you scared it won't last? Terrified. But I'm more scared of not trying. They'd been dancing around the conversation for weeks now. Sophie still maintained her rental house, still paid her own bills, still insisted on contributing equally to everything despite Ethan's repeated offers to help. But she stayed over 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. Her clothes had migrated into his closet. Her shampoo lived in his shower. Ava's dragon drawings covered his refrigerator alongside Noah's dinosaur sketches. They were building a life together in increments so small that it felt safe. But at some point, the increments had added up to something bigger. I've been thinking, Ethan said carefully, about your lease. It's up next month, right? Sophie stiffened slightly. Yeah. Have you thought about what you want to do? Renew? Find somewhere else? Or... He stopped, suddenly nervous in a way he hadn't been since asking her out that first time. Or what? Or move in here, officially. You and Ava. Make this permanent instead of temporary. Sophie pulled back, studying his face. That's a big step. I know. We've only been together 18 months. I know that too. And you're asking me to move into your mansion, give up my independence, let you support us financially. I'm asking you to stop paying rent on a place you barely live in anymore, to let Ava have the stability of one home instead of bouncing between two, to stop pretending we're not already doing this. Ethan caught her hands. But I'm not asking you to give up your independence. You keep working if you want to work. You contribute however feels right to you. This isn't about me taking care of you. It's about us taking care of each other. I'm still in nursing school. I won't graduate for another year. I know, I'm the one who helps you study for exams, remember? And after I graduate, I'll have student loans, mountains of debt. I won't be able to contribute equally to Sophie. Ethan squeezed her hands gently. I don't care about equal financial contributions. I care about partnership. You make me a better person. You make Noah happy. You brought life back into this house. That's worth more than any amount of money. You can't mean that. I absolutely mean that. Money's easy. Connection is hard. And what we have, what we've built, that's not something you can buy. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. And I need to talk to Ava. Make sure she's ready for this. Of course. And we'd need to talk about logistics, like where Ava would sleep and whether we'd share a room officially and what the kids would call this arrangement. Ethan kissed her, cutting off the spiral of anxiety. When he pulled back, she looked dazed and flustered and beautiful. Think about it, he repeated. Talk to Ava. We'll figure out the logistics together. No pressure. Okay. Sophie took a shaky breath. Okay, I'll think about it. Through the window, they could see Noah and Ava in the backyard. Noah had apparently given up on teaching Mr. Crunch soccer and was now demonstrating proper kicking technique while Ava narrated as if it were a nature documentary. Their laughter carried through the glass, bright and uncomplicated. They're already a family, Sophie said quietly. Those two. They don't need a formal arrangement to know they belong together. No. But maybe the formal arrangement is for us. So we can stop being scared of wanting this. Sophie leaned into him, and they stood there watching the kids play, drinking coffee, existing in the comfortable silence they'd learned to share. After a while, she said, I'll talk to Ava tonight. No rush. Yes, rush. Because if I don't decide soon, I'm going to overthink myself into a panic attack. She pulled away, grabbing her coffee. I'm going to shower. You should probably make breakfast before the kids decide to feed themselves and burn down the kitchen. That happened one time. Noah was trying to make flambé. He's 6. 7 now, and it was barely a fire. It set off the smoke alarm. Technically, that means the safety systems work. Sophie laughed, shaking her head as she headed toward the stairs. You're impossible. You love me anyway. She stopped, turned back. They hadn't said those words yet, not out loud, not officially. 18 months of dating, of building something real, and they danced around the big declaration like it might shatter if spoken aloud. Yeah, Sophie said softly. I do. I love you, Ethan Vale, even when you're defending your son's pyromaniac tendencies. I love you too, Sophie Carter, even when you're being stubborn about accepting help. Good, because I'm not going to stop being stubborn. I wouldn't want you to. She disappeared upstairs. Ethan stood in his kitchen, heart full, and thought about how far they'd come from that rainy night when a scared little girl had knocked on his door asking for help. He was still thinking about it when Noah and Ava burst through the back door, tracking mud across the floor and arguing about whether dragons could technically be considered mammals. Dad! Noah spotted him immediately. Tell Ava that dragons are reptiles, not mammals. Dragons aren't real, so they're not classified in any biological category, Ethan pointed out. Both kids stared at him like he'd personally insulted them. Fine. If dragons were real, they'd be mammals, he amended, because they're warm-blooded and care for their young. See, Ava crowed, I told you. That's not fair. Dad's just saying that because you're here and he doesn't want to upset you. Or maybe I'm right and you're wrong. Or maybe you're both right in your own imaginary biological taxonomies. And we should focus on getting the mud off my clean floor. Ethan grabbed paper towels. Shoes off. Both of you. Now. They grumbled but obeyed, leaving muddy footprints all the way to the door before finally stepping out of their sneakers. Ethan cleaned up while they washed their hands at the sink, still debating dragon biology with the kind of passionate intensity only children could muster. "Where's Mom?" Ava asked, climbing onto a stool. "Shower. She'll be down soon." Ethan started pulling out ingredients for pancakes. "You two hungry?" "Starving," Noah declared. "Teaching dragon soccer is exhausting." Mr. Crunch appreciated the lesson even if his form needs work. "His form is terrible. He kept using his wings instead of his feet." "Because he's a dragon. Dragons don't follow human rules." Ethan tuned out their bickering, falling into the comfortable routine of weekend breakfast. This was his life now. Mud on the floors, kids arguing about fictional creatures, Sophie upstairs in his shower, the smell of coffee, and the promise of pancakes. It was chaotic and messy, and nothing like the sterile perfection he'd maintained for 3 years after Rebecca's death. It was perfect. By the time Sophie came downstairs, dressed in jeans and one of her own shirts this time, the table was set and pancakes were piled high. The kids had declared a temporary truce in their dragon debate to focus on more important matters, like whether chocolate chips or blueberries made superior pancakes. "Both," Sophie said, settling into the chair that had somehow become hers. "You can have both." "But which is scientifically better?" Ava pressed. "That's a matter of personal preference, not science." "Everything can be science if you try hard enough." They ate breakfast like they'd been doing this forever instead of just 18 months. Easy conversation, comfortable silences, the kids stealing food off each other's plates when they thought the adults weren't looking. After, Noah and Ava disappeared back outside while Ethan and Sophie cleaned up together. "I'm going to talk to her today," Sophie said, scraping plates. "About moving in. Better to do it sooner rather than let the anxiety build." "You sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." She set a plate in the dishwasher with more force than necessary. What if she says no? What if she's not ready for this kind of change? Then we wait until she is. Or we figure out another arrangement. There's no timeline here except the one we create. "Your son wants her to move in." He's been dropping hints for weeks. "Noah wants a lot of things. Doesn't mean we give them to him immediately." Sophie turned to face him fully. "Do you really want this? Me and Ava living here permanently? Giving up my place? Combining our lives completely?" "Yes." "Just yes. No qualifications?" "Just yes. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want Ava's drawings on my fridge and her dragons scattered across my living room. I want Noah to have the sister he's clearly already adopted. I want us to stop pretending this is temporary when we both know it hasn't felt temporary in months. What if I mess it up? What if I can't be what you need? What if you're exactly what I need and you just don't see it yet?" Ethan dried his hands, moved to stand in front of her. "Sophie, you've spent your whole life fighting. Foster care, Marcus, poverty, single motherhood. You've never had anyone tell you that you're enough exactly as you are. But I'm telling you now, you're enough, more than enough. And I'm not going to stop telling you that until you believe it." She kissed him hard, desperate, like she was trying to convince herself through physical contact that this was real. When they broke apart, both breathing heavy, she whispered, "I'm so scared of losing this." "Me too, but being scared doesn't mean we stop trying." The conversation with Ava happened that afternoon in Sophie's rental house, the place that had been their home for almost 2 years but never quite felt permanent. Sophie sat on Ava's bed, surrounded by stuffed animals and dragon figurines, while her daughter organized her toy collection by color. "Baby, I need to talk to you about something important." Ava looked up, immediately suspicious. "Am I in trouble?" "No, nothing like that." Sophie took a breath. "You know how we've been spending a lot of time at Mr. Ethan's house?" "Yeah, because you're boyfriend and girlfriend, and Noah's my best friend." "Right. Well, Mr. Ethan asked if we'd want to move in there. Permanently, make it our home instead of coming back here every few days." Ava froze, dragon toy in hand. "Like, live there all the time?" "All the time. We'd move our stuff, give up this house, and his place would be our place. You'd have your own room there. A bigger one than this." "What about my stuff? My dragons?" "They'd come with us. Everything that's yours would come with us." Ava set down the toy carefully. "Would Mr. Ethan be my dad then?" Sophie had known this question was coming, but still wasn't prepared for it. "That's complicated. Mr. Ethan loves you very much, and he wants to be a big part of your life. But being a dad is a big deal. It's not something that happens just because we live in the same house. But Marcus was supposed to be my dad and he was mean. And Mr. Ethan is nice. So why can't he just be my dad instead? Because parenthood is more than just being nice, sweetheart. It's a commitment, a promise. And Mr. Ethan and I need to figure out what that looks like together. Do you love him? Yes. Does he love you? Yes. Does he love me? Sophie pulled Ava onto her lap. He absolutely loves you. He tells me all the time how much you've changed his life, how you made him remember how to be happy again. Then I don't understand why he can't be my dad. Maybe he can be, someday. But right now, I'm just asking if you'd be okay with moving in there, living with him and Noah, being a family, even if the grown-up labels are still being figured out. Ava was quiet for a long moment, thinking with the gravity that 4-year-olds could summon when something really mattered. Then she asked, "Would I still see you every day?" "Every single day. More than now, actually, because we wouldn't be splitting time between houses. And Noah would be there all the time, too?" "All the time." "And we'd have the big backyard to play in?" "Yes." "And the kitchen where we make tacos?" "Yes." "And I could bring Mr. Crunch?" "Mr. Crunch is non-negotiable. He comes everywhere you go." Another pause. Then Ava nodded decisively. "Okay, let's do it." "Yeah?" "Yeah, but Mom?" "What, baby?" "When Mr. Ethan becomes my real dad, not if when. Can we get a puppy?" Noah said his mom always wanted a dog, but his dad was too busy to take care of one. "But we could help. We're responsible." Sophie laughed through the tears she'd been holding back. "We'll talk about it after we move in and get settled." "That's grown up for probably not." "That's grown up for maybe if you prove you can handle the responsibility." "I can handle it. I take care of Mr. Crunch every day and he's very demanding." "Mr. Crunch is a stuffed animal." "He's a dragon. There's a difference." Sophie hugged her daughter tight, breathing in her little kid smell, shampoo and dirt, and something indefinably Ava. "I love you so much, you know that?" "I know. I love you too." Ava squirmed free. "Can we tell them now? I want to tell Noah we're moving in." "Let's pack some boxes first. Show them we're serious." They spent the rest of the afternoon packing Ava's room. Toys sorted into bins, clothes folded into bags, drawings carefully collected from the walls. It wasn't much. Everything Sophie and Ava owned fit into the back of Ethan's SUV with room to spare. But each item represented a piece of their life, their survival, their journey from that shelter to here. When they pulled into Ethan's driveway, both Noah and Ethan were waiting on the porch. Noah took one look at the packed car and started jumping up and down. "You said yes! You said yes!" "We said yes," Sophie confirmed, climbing out. "If the offer still stands." Ethan crossed to her in 3 strides, pulling her into a kiss that made Ava giggle and Noah make exaggerated gagging sounds. When he pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. "The offer absolutely still stands. Your room's ready. I had Mrs. Peterson help me set it up yesterday, just in case." "You were that confident?" "I was that hopeful." They unloaded the car together, all 4 of them carrying boxes and bags up to what was now Ava's room. Ethan had painted it purple, Ava's favorite color, and installed glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling like the ones she'd had in her old room. There was a new bed, a dresser, a bookshelf waiting to be filled. "It's perfect," Ava breathed. "Can Mr. Crunch sleep on the bed?" "Mr. Crunch can sleep wherever he wants," Ethan said seriously. "It's his room, too." While the kids unpacked Ava's dragons and arranged them precisely on her new shelves, Sophie and Ethan stood in the doorway watching. "Thank you," Sophie said quietly, "for all of this, for making space for us in your life. You made space in my life the night you knocked on my door with a broken lock and a scared daughter. I'm just returning the favor." "That's not how this works." "No? Then how does it work?" Sophie leaned into him, his arm coming around her shoulders automatically. "It works like this. We show up for each other. We build something together. We mess up sometimes and forgive each other. We let the kids eat too much sugar and stay up too late. We fight about stupid things like dishwasher loading techniques and what constitutes an appropriate bedtime. We wake up in the middle of the night when Ava has nightmares, and we hold her until she feels safe again. We celebrate Noah's small victories and Ava's big imagination. We live together." That sounds perfect. That sounds messy. Same thing. That night after the kids were asleep, Ava in her new purple room, Noah in his dinosaur cave down the hall, Sophie and Ethan sat on the back porch with glasses of wine, watching fireflies dance across the lawn. I gave up my apartment today, Sophie said. Called the landlord, told him I wouldn't be renewing. It's done. Official. How does it feel? Terrifying, like I'm jumping off a cliff and hoping you'll catch me. I'll catch you. You can't promise that. I can promise to try. Ethan set down his wine glass. Sophie, I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen until I'm done, okay? She tensed. That's never a good start to a conversation. It's not bad. I promise. Just hear me out. He took her hand. I've been thinking about this for months. About what we are, what we're building. And I realize that I don't want to keep calling you my girlfriend. It feels too temporary, too casual for what this is. Ethan, let me finish. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. Sophie's breath caught. I'm not proposing. Not yet. We agreed to take things slow, and I'm keeping that promise. But I want you to have this. To know that I'm serious about us. About forever. He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver ring with a small stone. Not a diamond, something blue and understated. It's a promise ring, Ethan explained. A promise that when you're ready, when we're both ready, I'm going to ask you properly. I'm going to get down on one knee and give you the ring you deserve and ask you to marry me. But until then, this is my promise that I'm not going anywhere, that you and Ava are my family, that I love you both more than I thought I could love anything again after Rebecca died. Sophie was crying now, tears streaming down her face. You're not playing fair. I'm playing for keeps. He took the ring from the box. So what do you say? Will you wear this and let me prove that I'm worth the risk? You're already worth the risk, you idiot. She held out her hand, let him slide the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. But yes, I'll wear it. I'll take the promise. Her voice broke. I'll try to believe I deserve this. You deserve everything. Ethan pulled her into his lap, holding her while she cried against his shoulder. You deserve a partner who shows up, kids who are safe and loved, a home that's actually yours, a future where you don't have to fight alone anymore. I don't know how to not fight. Then fight with me instead of against me. Let me be on your team. They sat like that for a long time, wrapped around each other under the stars, while inside the house their children slept peacefully in their own rooms. Eventually Sophie's tears stopped, replaced by a calm that felt earned instead of forced. I should call my lawyer tomorrow, she said. Start the paperwork for Ava's custody. Make it official that Marcus has no parental rights. I'll come with you. You don't have to, I want to. We're doing this together, remember? Together. Sophie tested the word like she was learning a new language. I'm still getting used to that. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. The months that followed were a masterclass in blending lives that had been separate for so long. They fought about small things. Sophie's tendency to leave cabinet doors open, Ethan's habit of rearranging the pantry by category instead of just putting things away. They navigated bigger challenges. Ava's nightmares intensifying before they finally faded. Noah's jealousy when Ava got attention for achieving milestones he'd passed years ago. But they also discovered joy in unexpected places. Sunday morning pancakes became a sacred ritual. Wednesday night movie marathons with the kids picking increasingly bizarre films. Sophie studying at the kitchen table while Ethan worked on his laptop beside her, comfortable in shared silence. Noah teaching Ava to read using his old phonics books. Ava convincing Noah that dragons were educational and should be included in every school project. 6 months after Sophie and Ava moved in, Marcus's parental rights were officially terminated. The judge ruled in Sophie's favor based on the documented abuse, the restraining order violations, and Marcus's complete absence from Ava's life since his arrest 18 months earlier. Sophie walked out of the courthouse shaking, Ethan's hand tight in hers. It's really over, she whispered. It's really over. He can't come back. He can't take her from me. Never again. That night, they told the kids over dinner, simple tacos, their traditional meal for big occasions. Ava didn't fully understand the legal ramifications, but she understood that the bad man couldn't hurt them anymore, that they were safe. Does this mean Mr. Ethan can be my real dad now? She asked, sauce smeared on her chin. Sophie and Ethan exchanged glances. They'd been talking about this for weeks, waiting for the legal side to be settled before broaching the topic of adoption. Would you want that? Ethan asked carefully. For me to legally adopt you? To be your dad in every way? Ava nodded vigorously. Yes. Then Noah would be my real brother, and we'd be a real family. We're already a real family, Noah interjected. The legal stuff just makes it official for boring grown-up reasons. Noah's right, Sophie said. We're already a family. But if you want Mr. Ethan to adopt you, to have that official connection, we can start that process. I want it. Ava climbed down from her chair, walked around the table to Ethan. Can I call you Dad now, or do I have to wait for the papers? Ethan's eyes went glassy. He picked her up, settled her on his lap. You can call me whatever feels right to you. Dad, Ethan, Mr. Ethan, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with Dad. She said it decisively, like she'd been thinking about this for a while. Is that okay? Ethan's voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. That's more than okay. That's perfect. Noah, not to be left out, came around to Sophie's side. Can I call you Mom? I know you're not my actual mom, and I don't want to forget my real mom, but hey. Sophie pulled him close. You can have more than one mom. The one who raised you and loved you and will always be in your heart. And the one sitting right here who loves you like you're her own. Loving me doesn't mean forgetting her. You promise? I promise. And yeah, you can call me Mom if you want to. I want to. Noah hugged her tight. Thanks, Mom. They stayed like that for a while. The four of them clustered at one end of the table, holding each other, letting the magnitude of the moment sink in. Then Ava announced she wanted more cheese, the spell broke, and they returned to the comfortable chaos of family dinner. Later, after the kids were asleep, Sophie found the photo album Ethan kept in his study. Pictures of Rebecca, laughing, pregnant with Noah, holding her newborn son, living a life that had ended too soon. I'm not trying to replace her, Sophie said when Ethan found her there. I need you to know that. I know. She was Noah's mother. She'll always be his mother. You're the person who's here now, who loves him and shows up and makes him smile. Rebecca would be grateful for that. I'm grateful for that. Ethan sat beside her, looking at the photos. I used to avoid these. Couldn't look at them without feeling like I was drowning. But now when I see them, I mostly feel thankful that I got to love her, that she gave me Noah, that she taught me what a real partnership looked like, so I'd recognize it when I found it again with you. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you, probably would have given me hell for waiting so long to ask you to move in. Only 18 months, that's practically light speed for serious relationships. Rebecca proposed to me after 6 months. She said life was too short to waste time pretending you weren't sure about something when you absolutely were. Sophie looked at the promise ring on her finger. Is that your way of saying I should hurry up and be ready for the real proposal? That's my way of saying I'll wait as long as you need. But I already know I want to marry you, so whenever you're ready, I'm ready. What if I'm never ready? What if the idea of marriage terrifies me because every relationship I've seen ended in disaster? Then we don't get married. We just keep doing this. Building a life together. Raising these kids. Being a family without the legal paperwork. You'd be okay with that? Sophie, I'd be okay with anything as long as it includes you. She kissed him, slow and deep, trying to pour everything she couldn't say into the contact. When they broke apart, she whispered, Ask me again in a year, on the anniversary of when we met. If I'm ready then, I'll say yes. And if you're not, then ask me the year after, and the year after that. Keep asking until I'm ready, or until you realize you're better off without the complication. I'll never realize that. How do you know? Because I spent 3 years without you, and I barely survived. I'm not going back to that, not ever. The year that followed was the best of Ethan's life. Sophie graduated from nursing school at the top of her class, Ava and Noah cheering so loudly at the ceremony that they were gently asked to quiet down. She got a job at a pediatric practice, finally using the degree she'd worked so hard for. The student loans were crushing, but Ethan helped her make a payment plan that wouldn't bury her. Noah turned 8 and announced he wanted to join the soccer team, which meant Ethan became a soccer dad, complete with folding chair and terrible understanding of the rules. Ava turned 6 and started kindergarten, where she immediately declared herself the class dragon expert and started a petition to add dragons to the science curriculum. They adopted a dog, a rescue mutt named Pancake, who was afraid of his own shadow but loved the kids fiercely. They took a vacation to the beach, stayed in a rental house that was nothing like Ethan's mansion, and made memories building sandcastles and hunting for shells. They fought. Real fights, not just the small bickering of daily life. Sophie accused Ethan of trying to solve everything with money. Ethan accused Sophie of being too proud to accept help, even when she needed it. They said things they regretted, slept in separate rooms once or twice, learned how to apologize and mean it. But they also learned how to repair, how to come back together after conflict and be stronger for having weathered it, how to forgive without keeping score, how to love each other on the hard days as much as the easy ones. And then, 2 years to the day after that rainy night, when Ava had knocked on Ethan's door asking him to save her mother, Ethan took Sophie back to the waterfront restaurant where they'd had their first date. The kids were with Mrs. Peterson under strict instructions not to wait up. The night was warm, stars visible, despite the city lights. They ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. Ava's latest dragon theory, Noah's upcoming science fair project, whether they should finally renovate the guest bathroom or leave it ugly for another year. After dinner, they walked along the boardwalk like they had that first night, and when they reached the spot where Ethan had first kissed her, he stopped. Sophie Carter. She turned, found him on one knee, holding a ring that caught the light from the street lamps. 2 years ago, your daughter knocked on my door and asked me to fix something broken. I thought she meant the door, but really, she was asking me to fix myself, to remember how to live, how to love, how to be present for the people who matter. He took her hand. You've given me everything I didn't know I was missing, a reason to come home, a family that feels real instead of hollow, a future that doesn't look like just surviving until I die. And I don't want to wait another year or another day to make this official. Ethan, I know you're scared. I know marriage feels like a trap because that's all you've known. But I promise you, I'm not Marcus. I'm not your foster parents. I'm not anyone who's ever let you down before. I'm just a man who loves you, who wants to build a life with you, who wants to give you and Ava my name and my protection and everything I have. He paused. So will you marry me? Will you let me be your husband? Will you trust that this is real and lasting and worth the risk? Sophie was crying, hands shaking as she looked at the ring. It was beautiful, a simple band with 3 stones, 2 smaller ones flanking a larger one in the middle. The kids, she said through her tears. What about them? The 3 stones. They represent the kids, don't they? Noah and Ava on either side, us in the middle. You said family should always be at the center of everything we do. I wanted you to remember that every time you looked at your hand. You're killing me with this romantic symbolism. Is that a yes? That's a... She took a shaky breath. I'm still scared. I know. I still don't fully believe I deserve this. I know that too. But I love you. I love Noah. I love the life we've built, and I don't want to run from it anymore. So yes. Yes, I'll marry you. I'll trust you. I'll take the risk. She held out her hand, let him slide the ring on. But if you ever make me regret this, I have a baseball bat, and I'm not afraid to use it. Ethan laughed, standing up and pulling her into his arms. Noted. Threatening your fiancé with sports equipment. Very romantic. I learned from the best. He kissed her there on the boardwalk, the same spot where this had started 2 years ago. But this time it wasn't tentative or nervous. This time it was certain. A promise of everything they'd built and everything still to come. When they got home, the kids were supposed to be asleep. Instead, they were camped out at the top of the stairs, Pancake between them, all 3 watching the door with barely contained excitement. Well? Noah demanded. Did she say yes? Sophie held up her hand, the ring glinting in the light. She said yes. Ava screamed. Noah whooped. Pancake barked. Mrs. Peterson emerged from the kitchen with champagne for the adults and sparkling cider for the kids, like she'd known this was coming. They celebrated together, all 6 of them, if you counted the dog, in the living room that was no longer silent or empty, but full of life and noise and love. Ava asked if she could be Flower Girl. Noah asked if he could give a speech. They argued about wedding colors and whether dragons should be part of the theme. We're not having dragons at the wedding, Sophie said. We should have at least one dragon, Ava argued, for good luck. Dragons aren't scientifically proven to bring good luck, Noah pointed out. Everything I like is scientifically proven. That's how science works. Ethan caught Sophie's eye across the chaos and grinned. This was his life now. This beautiful, messy, loud, imperfect life. And he wouldn't trade it for anything. 6 months later, they got married in the backyard of the house that had once been just Ethan's but was now theirs. Small ceremony, close friends, and family only. Ava was indeed the flower girl, wearing a purple dress with dragon scales embroidered on it. Noah gave a speech that was mostly about dinosaurs, but ended with a surprisingly touching tribute to his two moms, the one who gave him life and the one who taught him how to live again. Sophie walked herself down the aisle because she'd been fighting her own battles long enough that no one needed to give her away. She was choosing this freely. The officiant was the judge who'd terminated Marcus's parental rights, which felt full circle and right. When they exchanged vows, Sophie promised to let Ethan help her, even when it was hard. Ethan promised to see Sophie as an equal partner even when he wanted to solve everything with money. They both promised to show up for the kids, for each other, for the family they'd built from broken pieces. And when the officiant pronounced them married, when Ethan kissed his wife for the first time, the kids cheered louder than anyone. Pancake howled. Mrs. Peterson dabbed at her eyes. It wasn't perfect. The cake tilted slightly. The DJ played the wrong song for the first dance. Ava spilled juice on her dress and cried about the stain. Noah got into a fight with a cousin about proper dinosaur classification. But it was real. It was theirs. Later, after the guests had gone and the kids were finally asleep, all three of them piled into Noah's bed despite having their own rooms. Ethan and Sophie stood in their backyard looking at the remnants of the celebration. "We did it," Sophie said. "We actually built something lasting." "Never doubted it for a second." "Liar. You doubted it plenty." "Okay, fine. I doubted it constantly. But I wanted it so badly that I kept showing up anyway." Sophie leaned into him, and they swayed slightly even though there was no music. "Thank you." "For what?" "For fixing my door that night. For not being annoyed when I refused your help. For giving Ava a father who actually shows up. For loving my broken parts instead of trying to fix them. Thank you for knocking on my door. For refusing to let me solve everything with money. For giving Noah a mother who actually sees him, for loving me even when I was still figuring out how to be human again. They stood there for a long time, holding each other under the stars, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling down for the night. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car passed. Normal sounds of normal life. And Ethan thought about that rainy night 2 years ago when a scared little girl had asked him for help. How he thought he was saving her family. How he hadn't realized they were saving him. He thought about Rebecca, who would have loved Sophie and approved of everything they'd built. Who would have wanted him to find happiness again instead of wasting his life in grief. He thought about Noah and Ava, asleep upstairs, probably sprawled across each other in ways that would leave them with sore necks tomorrow. About the family they'd become not through biology, but through choice. He thought about Sophie, her hand in his, her ring on her finger, her trust given after years of learning that trust only led to pain. And he realized that broken things didn't always need fixing. Sometimes they just needed someone willing to sit with them in the mess, to hold space for the imperfect parts, to build something new from the pieces that remained. Sometimes salvation didn't look like rescue. It looked like mutual recognition. Two broken people finding each other and deciding that broken together was better than whole alone. "I love you," he said into Sophie's hair. "I love you too," she answered. "Even though you're ridiculous and romantic and tried to put dragons on the wedding invitations just to make Ava happy." She appreciated the gesture even if you vetoed it. She got dragon scales on her dress. That was the compromise. "You're getting good at compromise." "I'm learning from the best." They walked inside together, locked the door behind them, climbed the stairs to check on the kids one more time. Found them exactly as expected. Tangled together, Pancake at the foot of the bed, Mr. Crunch tucked under Ava's arm. Their family. Imperfect and chaotic and built from the rubble of everything that had come before. "You think we're doing this right?" Sophie whispered, watching the kids sleep. "I think we're doing it our way," Ethan answered. "And our way seems to be working." "Yeah, it really does." They closed the door softly and walked to their own room, the one they'd share now, officially, legally, permanently. And as Ethan fell asleep with Sophie curled against him, he sent a silent thank you to whatever force in the universe had sent a little girl through the rain to knock on his door. Because sometimes the thing you thought you were fixing was actually fixing you. Sometimes the family you needed was the one you built, not the one you were born into. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, broken doors led to open hearts.